Hey everybody, this is the Player's Take, episode 3. Player's Take is our weekly show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to games. I'm your host, Justin DeSimone, and I'm joined by my co-host, Montrell Rice.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, man. So, I haven't been saying this, it's kind of important information, but we are a weekly podcast, as I said, focused on video games. We are going to be, we generally release on Tuesdays at 6 a.m. Central Time. We missed our date this week because I had some kind of medical issues that came up. Couldn't record, but here we are recording anyways. Going to be a little bit late, but not a big deal. So, Montrell, you want to jump right into it?
All right, let's do this.
All right, so starting with what we're playing this week, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'm currently playing, which is very surprising. I am currently playing Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of Yakuza 1 that came out on the PS3, maybe? Or 2? I don't know which one it came out on. All I know
so this is a remake. You're playing it on PS3, or is this game?
I'm playing it on PS4.
Oh,
it's
so
a remake
it came out on
the very first one.
Gotcha.
A lot of people have been telling me to play this game on Twitter. And I've been seeing screenshots of it. It looks like a wild, kooky game. If you're not familiar with the Yakuza franchise.
Well, from what I've seen of it, yeah, they're pretty nuts. Like, they have all this random shit you can do in the game. Yeah. You can play, like, all sorts of mini games. It's like GTA in Japan, sort of.
Yeah, it's really cool. When I played it, I immediately fell in love with it. The same team who made that is also making Fist of the North Star game, which is a really cool game. They kind of do a lot of fourth wall breaking in that game. I'm also playing Final Fantasy 12 Remastered, or I don't know if it's a remaster or a remake. I don't know.
It's a remaster.
It's a remaster. Okay.
It's a remaster of the international version, I think, which is the one that had all the changes that are in this one.
Yeah.
We never got that one in the States originally when it was on PS2.
Okay.
And I think they decided to just release it because it changes the game significantly from what I know, because it changes the way character progression works.
Yeah, when I played 12 way back when, I just remember hating 12.
Yeah, I hated it too, and it was probably my least favorite Final Fantasy from a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah.
Because the character progression was terrible. Like, you would play and you level up and you get job points that you put on the license board or whatever, but everybody could get every single thing on the license board, which made the characters pointless. They were literally just stat sticks that looked different, you know?
Yeah.
And the change they made with the international version that changed the gameplay was that you had to pick a class or something like that, right?
Yeah,
and that restricted you to certain parts of the job board, right?
It's almost like a lighter version of Final Fantasy 14. Like, that's what it feels like to me when I play the game. It feels like I'm playing like an offline Final Fantasy 14.
Which is what the game kind of felt like back in the day. It felt like an MMO kind of.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have a problem with in and of itself. It was just the progression of characters was so samey for every single character. There were no real differences between any of them besides their stats.
Yeah.
That it turned me off from the game. It didn't feel rewarding to build your characters because it didn't really matter who you used.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, I kind of like this. We got a new setup, y'all. We're in his house. Like, I'm looking directly at him.
Yeah, we're like conversing now. Yeah.
All right. And I'm playing Smash Brothers Ultimate. Still trying to unlock all the characters for that.
Man, come on, man. I unlocked them all like 2 weeks ago, man. What are you doing? Get your shit together.
I've been procrastinating. And I'm also playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which really surprised me as a very good game.
So I'm also playing this as well. You said you got on here. You've been playing for about 20 hours. I started playing it last night for about 5 hours. And yeah, I am just as surprised as you are because I've never played an Assassin's Creed before. This was the first one.
Okay.
This is the first one I decided to jump into. I wanted to jump into last year's because it looked like it was a distinct change of pace, but didn't end up doing it. Ultimately, didn't have time in the cost of the game, whatever, what have you. But this year I decided to bite the bullet because I think I got it for like $30 or something like that on Black Friday, and I was interested enough in the setting being Greece that I really wanted to give it a shot. So yesterday, I'd finished, I'm going to talk about this in a second, I finished Spider-Man and Batman Season 2, so I was thinking about what to play before Kingdom Hearts comes out later this month, and I just decided to jump into this game. I was like, you know what, fuck it, like, let's give it a shot. And I ended up getting really engrossed in it. I was really surprised in how deep it seems. It's not what I expected out of Assassin's Creed.
So Yeah, so coming from where I'm just going to talk on it briefly. I played all the Assassin's Creed games up to Black Flag. So Assassin's Creed number 4. A lot of them, if you're familiar, like they had this one button system, like you had your regular attack button and you had a parry button, but it was so OP that you can take out enemies with one shot. Like if you counter them, one shot, and if you got really good at the game, you can just counter everybody and one shot them throughout the whole game. So it wasn't really challenging in that aspect. But this game, and I stopped playing Assassin's Creed games, and that Assassin's Creed came out in about 2012, 2013-ish.
Which one? Black Flag?
Black Flag.
Yeah, that was at the end of the last generation of consoles. So
okay.
I think I was 2012 sounds right.
All right. So yeah, I stopped playing it around then. I stopped playing Assassin's Creed in general around then. And when I picked this up, I heard about the changes in Origins and how it was just, everyone was just like, oh, this game is just amazing. So unfortunately, I didn't pick up Origins. But I did pick up Odyssey because I had a deal with this Blue Yeti mic I got right now. And I'm playing it, and the combat is solid. It's like a more redefined version of Shadow War meets Witcher meets
God of War.
War.
So yeah, that's kind of what struck me in the 5 hours I played it. I'm getting flashes of God of War from this year, Breath of the Wild, weirdly enough, and then The Witcher. Yeah, those 3 games are the kind of ones that come to mind when I was playing this. Breath of the Wild, because you can climb anything in this game, it seems, from what I've played so far.
Yeah.
And just like Zelda, it's a little bit more stilted than Zelda. You're kind of more sticky to points rather than kind of climbing in any direction you want.
Free climbing. Yeah.
It's more like Uncharted, I guess, in that way, where there's like predefined points you can kind of climb on.
Yeah, and that kind of been a staple of like Assassin's Creed. They always have like defined points where you can climb.
Yeah, but yeah, I climbed basically anything I wanted: mountains, statues, what have you, houses. Didn't really seem to matter what I was climbing. So it gives you an interesting freedom in movement with that and exploration that I was really enjoying. And then the combat. It kind of reminds me of The Witcher because it feels a little loose at times, but at the same time, it feels a little tighter than Witcher did to me. Like
I can agree with that.
It's kind of in between God of War and The Witcher in terms of how the character feels when you're fighting. Yeah. Movement-wise, the character's really loose, I feel like, which is kind of weird to get used to at first.
That's all Assassin's Creed game. I mean, I'm kind of used to it because I have played Assassin's Creed, so I'm glad they kept the fluidity of it. But yeah, the combat... how we were talking about earlier, it's not just you can parry, but you don't, it's not like the Batman parry. Like, you know, if you have Batman, you have the little flashes over your head, and it's like, hey, he's coming, like, dodge. It does that, but on the character. And the characters themselves all have different attack animations, so you just can't parry when they flash.
Well, it's like God of War in that way.
Yeah.
Because God of War had the same thing where an enemy would flash when they're about to attack you, but that's not your moment to block necessarily. Like if you actually want a perfect block, you need to wait till the animation happens and then time it right for when it's about to hit you, which is what this game's doing as well. And this game's actually a little harsher than God of War because there's no block button. Like you have to press the buttons at the exact moment you want to block, or otherwise you don't block and then you get hit. So it's a little bit less forgiving, I feel like, actually, than God of War, which has been interesting so far. Because I'm playing on hard, and I'm not going to say it's been, like, brutal or anything like that, but it's been a little bit more difficult than I was expecting. I definitely had some moments where I was struggling against certain enemies. That has a lot to do with the leveling, too. The like, fighting things above your level in this game so far for me has been a no-go. Like, don't even try it for the most part.
And I'm playing on normal mode, and it's like that. And I like how you said earlier today, and we weren't on the podcast, but he says, like, an old-school feeling. So, like, I was trying to figure out, was it bad game design or good game design? But it actually taught me a lesson. At the beginning, this is just the first, like, 5 minutes of the game, or 30 minutes of the game, so I'm not spoiling anything if you haven't played the game. But, you know, you have 2 paths you can take. It's an open world after you do the first initial fight. They kind of teach you some stuff. But it's 2 paths you can take. And then if you go on the left path, you know, that's kind of like the path they want you to go. You level 1 monsters and stuff like that. You go on the right path, though, you run into like level 5 enemies and some wolves, and you'll get destroyed on that path. And unfortunately, I did that, and I was like, what the hell? But then I start exploring other places, and I found where I was supposed to go. So I thought that was pretty cool because it reminded me of another game that did that. I think it was Dark Souls that had that path thing where you can go down one path. You're not as strong to go down that path, but then you go down another path. That's the path you're supposed to take, actually. But I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know about the story so far has kind of been blah. I don't particularly care for what's happening. You said it does seem to get better though. A little bit later.
I like the voice acting. The voice acting is really good to me.
Yeah, it's solid. I find I was telling you this earlier that the dialogue is really weird though because they talk the way we talk, but they have Gaelic accents.
Yeah.
And it's really off-putting sometimes where they just say something like, I can't believe this shit, but they're saying it like with the Gaelic intonation, which really just sounds weird. I don't, it throws me off a little bit. But
yeah, and then if you're walking around, you hear the banter between like the townsfolk and stuff. They're speaking actual Latin, so it's very interesting how they made this game.
Yeah. But I will say too, I really like what really like put me on so far that I'm really excited to continue playing is this game really rewards exploration. There's a lot of shit to find off the beaten path, and I think it's like Zelda in that way for me, that it doesn't really, well, it can, I guess, but it doesn't really tell you where things are, because when you start the game up, it gives you this option of 2 different modes to play in. The game calls them exploration mode, and then what was the other one? Do you remember what the other one was?
I don't remember what the other one was called, but it pretty much puts all the markers on your map.
Yeah, it basically... Yeah, so the 2 modes, exploration mode is the mode the game recommends you play in, where it does not show you very much. It gives you like general markers for landmarks and maybe settlements and certain things, or anything you find you'll get a marker for. So the other mode is... I don't remember what it's called, but it gives you all the markers. So on the map, I like the fact that the exploration mode is so it doesn't give you much. Like, it really does not give you much of anything. Like, it gives you a few general markers on where points of interest are, but there are other points of interest that those markers that are away from those markers that aren't marked at all on the map. Like, I keep finding this metal, the Auriculum.
Auriculum.
Okay. I always say that shit wrong. It seems like an important item because I found 5 of them already on the starting island.
You can use it to like upgrade your weapon.
Yeah, you can trade it with somebody. It says in the game, like the tooltip says that. But I found those, like 5 of them on the main island already, on the first island you're on, and there's no indication that they're there. They're just the thing you have to go find in this version of the game. So, or in this mode, in quote-unquote exploration mode. So I really like that the game, it's kind of encouraging me to experience the world in a way that even The Witcher didn't really do, because The Witcher had quest markers fucking everywhere. Like, which considering how big that game is, you appreciate it somewhat, but at the same time, I don't, because then it turns into a checklist thing where it's like, I have extreme OCD with this shit. Yeah. So
yes, I do too.
Knowing it's there, I have to go get it. And the fact that it's not here in this game, I'm not feeling that same burden. Like, if I miss some of these hidden auriculum, I'm not gonna go find them. Like, I don't care that much, But if they were on the map marked, I would go get them.
Yeah,
so.
And I think this game solves a lot of issues I have with a lot of open world games as well. Especially Assassin's Creed games did this, but a lot of open world games do like the radio tower effect, where you, like in all Assassin's Creed games previous to the Origins. I'm assuming this came from Origins as well, but they had this thing where you synchronize and everything pops up in that location. I usually get very off put by that because I don't like that type of thing. What I like is, just let me explore. This one lets you explore, and it puts like a general question mark in the area, and then whatever you find in that area, that's what you explore.
Well, yeah, so the question mark a lot of the time has just been caves so far, and they're pretty big. Like, you go in them and there's a lot of shit in them. And sometimes they have multiple entrances as well, I've noticed. So the world seems pretty deeply crafted. There's a lot, because I was kind of assaulting a fort yesterday, and there were 3 different hidden ways to get into that fort, without just going in the front. It was really cool. I really liked that element of it too. They give you multiple ways to kind of tackle things. So I like the way the game's designed so far. I mean, it's only 5 hours. I don't have a lot to go on, but to me, it's an interesting game. I'm kind of sad that I haven't gotten enough time to play it more before we talk about Game of the Years, because I actually am feeling like even this early that this game might be on my list.
Yeah.
Because it has made that big of an impression on me already. Compared to some of the other games on my list, And I'm really looking forward to playing it some more. I don't think I'm going to beat it before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, but I am going to try.
This game, guys, is fucking massive.
Like, it seems bigger than The Witcher 3, from what I understand. Like, in terms of hours, because it took me 150 hours to platinum The Witcher 3.
You platinumed that game?
Yes, I platinumed that game.
Oh
I love that
God.
game. I love that game that much. It took me 150 hours to do that. That's doing basically everything in the game. And
Jesus Christ.
it took 150 hours, and I think Assassin's Creed has more than that in its entirety. If you do every side quest, all the hidden shit, like that's from what I've read online.
Yeah.
In terms of estimates people have given. So
now one thing I don't like is the menus. They are kind of like tailored for advertising. If you scroll over, like the store is like
100%.
right there.
Dude,
so,
that was the first thing I noticed when I booted the game up. The store is fucking obnoxious. It is. There's more menus in the store than there are in the fucking game.
Yeah,
It's insanity. Like they got. I know Ubisoft is big on this stuff. Obviously, they're as bad as Activision and EA with this, with the microtransactions.
they try to hide it.
But yeah, they are. They do try to hide it because if you don't click on store, you don't really see it.
Yeah,
but when you click on store, it's insane. There's like 6 different tabs of things you can fucking buy that are completely useless to you. Like you can buy horse costumes, fucking ship costumes. You can buy costumes for your character. You can buy fucking item sets. You can buy all this shit that you don't need. Like, I don't understand the point. The game has its own fucking currency in it for a single player game. I don't.
Yeah,
It's obnoxious.
It's not as bad or it's not as predatory as Shadow of War. If you guys play that game.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I actually bought that game at launch before they patched out all the DLC. But when I bought it, even though it didn't really faze me, it was very predatory. Like. And this game doesn't do that in that way, but if you click on that store tab, you're going to be like, oh, shit.
Well, you can buy chests in this game that have items, right? I think?
Yeah, you can buy XP boosters.
Or is it just XP boosters?
I think it's just XP.
Because I know Shadow...
is like cosmetic.
Yeah. Because Shadow of War sold you actual gear that you could use.
They sold you gear. If you want to control... You can control your orc army in there.
Well, yeah, it sold orcs, too, right? Through that as well?
Sold you more powerful orcs and stuff like that. And... you can take your orcs online and defend your castle. So it's like a defend tower type thing. So they actually put like a defend one of those tower defense mobile games in an actual piece or in an actual console game, which is kind of funny when I thought about it.
But then they made it pay to win.
Yeah, I mean it's just like a mobile
game.
So it's almost like a gotcha mobile tower defense game. Like it's crazy. And yeah, so I mean, but Assassin's Creed doesn't do any of that. Fortunately, but you know they do have skins and stuff like that. And
well, the season pass is like $40 too.
Yeah,
which I mean, it seems like they're putting a lot of effort into the DLCs, but still, do $40 for a season pass? It's pretty steep, man. That's 2/3 of the cost of the fucking game. That's actually more than what I paid for the game.
You know what? At this point, man, like I actually would just rather pay $80 a game than this extra shit.
I do too. Yeah. I agree. I think that's our future. That's probably where we're going. We're probably going to be paying 70 or 80 in the next generation. I think that's inevitable. But unfortunately, we've opened Pandora's box with microtransactions. So I think we're going to get that $70, $80 reality with microtransactions still in the mix. So we can't put that back in once it's come out the way it has. So publishers they see the dollar signs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you got anything else to say about Assassin's Creed?
No,
I think we'll talk about it more too when we actually get to the topic of the show. So what I've been playing besides Assassin's Creed, because that is not all I've been playing this week. So I finished and platinumed Spider-Man on PS4.
He just started playing that shit like last week, y'all.
I mean, it's not a long game, and it's I was enjoying it a lot, so I put a lot of time into it and finished it off. I'm going to talk about that more, though, later on. I also finished Telltale Batman Season 2. It was a short... I was about halfway through it when I stopped playing it, so I just finished it off. It was like 5 hours. I'll probably talk about that more as well.
Rest in peace, Telltale.
Indeed. And then I was playing Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. I know I mentioned that in the last episode that I got that. Wasn't sure I was going to play it. I ended up popping it in, and I have been enjoying that pretty well, too. So, and then I also mentioned I think I mentioned this, that I bought Shining Force on phone, which is an old-ass Genesis game. Have you ever heard of this, Shining Force?
Shining Force sounds familiar.
So
Is it a side-scrolling beat 'em up?
No. It's a turn-based strategy game.
Really?
Yeah, no. It's a turn-based strategy game. I wouldn't play a side-scrolling beat 'em up on my phone.
Why not?
Fuck that shit.
Wow.
Turn-based games are good for phones because you can, start and stop whenever you want. So I've been playing that. It's an old game that I fucking love. It's one of my favorite games, and it actually works pretty well on phone. Surprisingly enough, I have been mildly impressed with how it plays on a phone, because it uses like a virtual touchpad to simulate the controller. But the game's simple. I mean, you really only need like a D-pad and 2 buttons pretty much just to play the game, so there's not much going on there. And that it's been working for me, so I've been having fun with that. So okay, moving on. So on to news. There's been a little bit of news since the last episode. Nothing, I wouldn't say anything like crazy major. These are kind of the stories that piqued our interest, though. So the first one is the Nintendo president gave an interview. Shuntaro Furukawa gave an interview this past week talking about consoles, where he said they aren't necessarily fixated on consoles. So here's the quote: "We aren't really fixated on our consoles. At the moment, we're offering the uniquely developed Nintendo Switch and its software, and that's what we're basing how we deliver the Nintendo experience on. That being said, technology changes. We'll continue to think flexibly about how we deliver that experience as time goes on. It has been over 30 years since we started developing consoles. Nintendo's history goes back even farther than that, and through all the struggles that they faced, the only thing that they thought about was what to make next. In the long term, perhaps our focus as a business could shift away from home consoles. Flexibility is just as important as ingenuity." And then he goes on, "I'm thinking about little ways we can reduce that kind of instability. I'd like to increase the amount of games on smartphones that have a continuous stream of revenue. We're also dabbling in theme parks and movies, different ways to have our characters be part of everyday life. I'm anticipating a strong synergy like that." So, when I read this, I don't want to say like alarm bells were going off or anything like that. I don't really take these comments too seriously in the short term. I don't really think this is a threat to their console business right now, this kind of thinking. I think he's really just kind of generalizing and saying we want to be flexible and adapt with the times and not necessarily get stuck in one route or the other. But I mean, what do you take away from those quotes?
I think, well, I'm not really hyped about them moving towards mobile. I think that's what that means, in my opinion. Like, they're gonna start primarily putting a lot of games on mobile. You might see the next Pokemon game, mainline Pokemon game on mobile instead of Pokemon Go. That would be a huge gacha game or something like that. I mean, we already got Fire Emblem Heroes, which makes a lot of sense. So they do have a lot of quote unquote heroes. So, I mean, and I guess it kind of leads into the next article with how much money they made.
So there was they released their revenue basically for 2018 in their mobile games, and no surprise, Fire Emblem Hero was the top one, which they totaled 348 million, I think, between all of their mobile games. Fire Emblem made the lion's share of that, probably about 2/3. Looks like somewhere in the realm of 225 million. Dragalia Lost, which is a new gacha that they came out with in September, the end of September, in fact. So it was only out for 3 months last year. Made over 50 million. And then Animal Crossing Pocket Camp made a little bit under 50 million. And then Super Mario Run is barely even on this chart. Probably made somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10 million, it looks like, just looking at the chart. And this is kind of building off what we talked about last week and building off what he said in that quote. I kind of agree with you here that I think that's kind of what he meant is, I mean, he literally said that he wants continuous revenue streams, right?
Yeah.
And mobile games are that. Gacha games are that. They give you a continuous revenue stream that you can capitalize on for very little effort. You do not need large teams to make these games. And you don't need a large investment to make a lot of money off these games. And Fire Emblem Heroes it made almost 250 million last year. And I wouldn't wager the development team of that game is anything more than 30, 40 people probably, at most. And that's insane turnaround for the amount of effort you're putting into that. I mean, there's a lot. I have to give Nintendo credit because in the realm of gacha, they actually put a lot of effort into Fire Emblem Heroes relative to some of the other makers of these games. But Dragalia Lost being on here, being second already with 3 months of the year being on the market is kind of fucking crazy because they made this in partnership with a company called Psy Games, which they make a gacha game called Grand Blue Fantasy. And that is one of the bigger gachas out there. It's been around for a long time. And it's not a surprise to me that this game took off because a lot of people know the name Psy Games within gacha. People who play gacha games, they kind of know what companies are good and which ones are bad.
Yeah.
In terms of who's predatory, who's not predatory, who makes fair systems, who doesn't make fair systems. And Psy Games is kind of one of those ones that's known for being pretty fair to their players. They give away a lot of free shit in their games. They make games that are fun. And they're pretty solid in terms of their polish. So the fact that they're making a Nintendo IP, or in partnership with Nintendo, an IP on mobile that's a gacha, I think it made a lot of sense to me that this game took off. I played it briefly when it came out for the first week or two, when I was still kind of fading away from gacha. I gave it a shot, and it didn't really grab me. I thought it was okay for what it was, but ultimately is the same kind of thing we were dealing with other gacha games. It's just kind of an endless it's just an endless content loop that never ever fucking ends. So I think in terms of relating this to the quotes from the president is that I do think you're right. I think we're going to see more mobile games coming out of Nintendo. I think a Pokemon game makes a lot of sense next. A Pokemon gacha makes a ton of fucking sense. It's perfect for the model. You have hundreds of Pokemon that you can use, and that's kind of a never-ending revenue stream, in my opinion. I think that's a no-brainer. If they're not making that right now, they're fucking crazy. I think they should be. They should be making. That game should be. It should have already been made, in my opinion. But they know what they have though now in this kind of market, and I think if we don't see it this year, we will see it within the next 2 years, probably. A Pokemon gacha. I think that's like almost a guarantee. And in terms of other stuff, I don't know.
So that's what part I was going to come into. Yeah. So the other stuff with a lot of me and my friends were talking about, and this is a small group of my friends, but actually when I went online and I talked about it on Twitter with other people, a lot of people agreed that Nintendo should probably just move straight towards software and ditch the hardware. I mean, the Switch, obviously, I love it. It's a great success. But how Sega did with their IPs, they just, instead of making Sonic just on the Genesis, they put Sonic on all platforms. And they're actually making a shit ton of money just off their Sonic games alone. They're not losing money. That's why they keep making them, because they're not losing any money. It's software.
It just depends on what they want, though. Because they've always they've been a hardware company for 30 years, 30 plus years now, and they have a huge legacy in gaming. It's something that Sega doesn't have. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit what you think about Sega. They don't have the legacy that Nintendo does.
Well, damn,
they don't. It's just reality. I mean, Nintendo comes up with these classic things that Sega's been doing for fucking years, and they're flying off shelves, and you can't even find them. Sega's had these fucking things in Target for like 10 years. Nobody gives a shit. So they just don't have that same legacy that Nintendo does, and I think this was a common sentiment before the Switch came out, that people were thinking that if this console bombed, the Switch, that they would move into software. I think the Switch obviously is a huge success, and it's a runaway success, but I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if I want to see them go third party. Like, I really don't know how I feel about that. It's a hard thing for me to wrap my head around, because they've never done it. And they've never even been in that conversation really until recently.
I kind of consider mobile third party, in my opinion. Like, they don't really own that platform.
That's true. That's true. That's definitely true. But that's kind of a different beast, though.
Yeah,
that's sort of like putting your games on Steam. It's kind of its own thing. Because I mean, when I'm talking about Nintendo as a third party, I mean putting their shit on Xbox and PlayStation, really. Just putting it on Steam, in my opinion, will like shift everything. That's true. I think that's something they should consider too. It's not a terrible idea, because the Switch gives you a different experience than a PC does.
Yeah.
And I think that PC market would put them in a place that they're not servicing with the Switch necessarily, because the Switch isn't a home console in the sense of the PlayStation or the Xbox or PC is either, where it's stationary and it's tethered to a screen. where the Switch is a mobile device, really. I mean, Nintendo doesn't talk about it that way, but the reality is that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think even with that, they can put like games like, Splatoon on PC. It'll have a bigger audience, like, the shooter audience would get into it, and maybe you can cross-platform it with the Switch. I mean, obviously with the current infrastructure Nintendo has, I don't think that's possible, but that could be a thing in the future if they ever decided to do a Switch 2 or whatever the fuck, I mean, I'm interested to see what there's gonna go. I'm glad Nintendo's making hella money, because after the Wii U wave, we thought they were gonna go. I thought they were gonna leave.
No, I didn't think they would die. I thought them going third party was a real possibility.
Real possibility, yeah.
Because that's their last resort, right?
Yeah.
If they fall apart as a company, that's always going to be a last resort for them. That they could go third party and put their shit on PlayStation and Xbox, and they would sell. Whatever they're selling now, they probably double that number.
That should probably triple.
No, I wouldn't quite triple it. I'd say double though. Okay. I think double is like, and they would be blowing the industry away. The fact that they were selling almost 1-to-1 copies of Zelda with the Switch for the first 6 months of its fucking lifespan is insanity. That the attach rate of Nintendo games is always been through the roof for the most part. Besides maybe the Wii was being an exception since they sold so fucking many of those things. But with the Wii U, they sold 9 million copies of Mario Kart on the Wii U, and they've only sold 14 million Wii U's or something. That's insane. That is an insane attach rate for a game with that kind of install base.
Yeah.
So they've always been that way with their core games, and I think that's why it makes sense for them to keep being in hardware, because they have a dedicated audience. And I like what they do, too. The Switch is something that Xbox and PlayStation would never, ever give us. They just don't have the balls to do that kind of thing.
And honestly, I do. If a game is coming out and it's third party and it's releasing on all consoles, I do buy it on my Switch, because I can take my Switch everywhere. Like, if I want to be on lunch, I'm thinking about this game all day, I'm like, man, I can get a quick hour in with this game. And I can do that on my Switch, where I can't do that with my PlayStation 4 or my Xbox.
Yeah.
Well, Sony, you know what? I don't even give them a pass. They had that technology, and they blew it. So...
yeah. I mean, the thing with the Switch is I'm playing it almost unconsciously playing it. I will just pick it up and play 30 minutes of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee without when it's convenient for me. I will go to the bathroom and I will bring it with me to the bathroom, play it when I'm in the bathroom, and then I will play it for 20 more minutes after I get out of the bathroom. It's just it's just become a habit thing now that that's just how I play my Switch.
Yeah.
And it's ended up making me play my Switch a lot, because it's just I'm having fun while I'm playing, so I just keep playing it, even after I'm back in my room with my PlayStation fucking on, playing Assassin's Creed or something. So
yeah, and I have a habit of playing it with when I'm watching Netflix or something like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
If I just want to put on a show, sometimes I do this all the time, actually. If I just want to put on a show that I already watched, I love the sitcom Frasier, and I watched it 3 times already. But
wait,
don't you dare, don't you dare picture.
I don't picture you and picture Frasier. I don't
fucking love Frasier. That is my show.
I learned something new today, man. Frasier, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
Frasier.
Right. Did you like Cheers?
I didn't like Cheers, but I love Frasier.
Okay. Right.
I love Frasier, but I did not. Enough. I tried to watch Cheers, and I'm like, he was in that. That's where it came from.
Yeah, of course. He wasn't the main character.
He was the main character, yeah. But I don't know, something about Frasier resonates with me. But
I've never really watched it. So.
It's a great show. Okay. But yeah, I'll be playing that. I'll be playing my Switch. And I have that going on in the background, and I don't know. It's just something about it that's really cool.
Well, I play it when I'm watching football, and it's if I'm not really into the game, I kind of have it on. I'm kind of passively watching it. I'm playing. Usually, I'm playing my Switch when I'm watching. So it's a great device for that, for multitasking. If you're listening to a podcast or something, that's why I like handhelds so much. I've always liked them because I listen to a lot of fucking podcasts, and it's a great way to listen to kind of multitask, play some games while I'm listening to a podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I love the Switch. That's why I don't want to see Nintendo leave the hardware space, because
they bring unique ideas to the table.
They do bring unique ideas, and their handhelds have always kicked ass. Always. Yeah. They've always kicked ass. I can't think of one that I actually didn't like, honestly. Like the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, I mean, obviously that thing is a beast, but...
Unfortunately, only console I didn't play, handheld I didn't play from them, was a DS, the original DS.
Really?
I never played the DS.
That might be... That's not my favorite one personally, but that might be their best one.
Really?
Like, the library and just the execution of that thing was fucking phenomenal. Like, that is one of their best devices I think they've ever made. Just,
Wow.
like, hands down, straight up. I like, even compared to
3DS?
their home consoles. Yeah, it's way better than the 3DS.
Okay.
I think the 3DS is actually one of my least favorite of theirs.
Really?
Because it's basically just a more powerful DS. They weren't doing anything interesting with that thing. And I didn't love that. You know, I thought it was basically they just didn't do enough with it. It just because the 3D gimmick never really did anything for anybody with their games.
True. I always turn it off.
It's just the DS that has more power. That's all it ever was. So it kind of disappointed me in that fact, and it was really overpriced when it first launched.
Yeah.
If you remember, they were charging $250 for that thing.
Really?
Yeah, remember because
I didn't buy it on first launch.
Oh, remember, this came out in 2011, I think, and 2012 the Vita came out, and they were tanking. Like 3DS sales were horrible. They weren't selling anything of the 3DS because it was way overpriced. It was $250, which was the price of a fucking Wii. Which is, I mean, think about how insane that is.
Yeah.
And then the Vita comes out, and it's $250, and that thing is like a fucking PS3 in your hand,
Yeah.
right? So Nintendo slashed the price to $179 or $169 rather, $170.
Yeah, and I think that's
Base
when
price.
I bought
That's
it.
when it fucking took off. That's when
Yeah.
I bought it too, and that saved that piece of hardware. That thing would have been a fucking colossal failure for Nintendo if they hadn't done that.
Yeah, 'cause
people
I don't-
forget that happened.
I don't remember that.
No, that seriously was like, people were saying that the Vita was going to eat Nintendo's fucking lunch because Nintendo was doing terribly with the 3DS. And, you know, Sony made a bunch of boneheaded decisions leading up to the Vita launch that we don't need to get into now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that device, and to me, is one of their more tepid handhelds. I still like it. I've played it a lot, but it's probably one of my least favorite of the ones I've played.
I did like the library on it. What I didn't like was... I know, even though I didn't play the DS, I know it was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance.
It was, yes.
I didn't like that the 3DS wasn't backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, if I remember.
Yeah, but I mean, think about that though. That's like 10-year-old
man.
hardware.
I still want it, man.
I know you do. I know you do. But it's kind of at a certain point you have to accept that like old shit's old, and you can't play it that way anymore. So, but the Game Boy Advance is probably my favorite one of theirs, particularly the clamshell.
That's my favorite.
Yeah,
one.
the clamshell SP Lite.
Man.
I still have my original one.
That was revolutionary.
And it absolutely was. That thing was a handheld in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
The thing closed, fits in the palm of your hand, and it's so
and
small.
It lights up in dark time.
It had the backlight, which was the first time we ever had that, and it had the rechargeable battery, which I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
it had never had that in a handheld before. So that particular model of the Game Boy Advance was fucking just awesome. And the library of games on the Game Boy Advance, really underrated because it's a really short lifespan, but it's one of my favorite libraries.
They do have a lot of gems. Like if you go back, especially the Pokemon games,
Golden Sun 1 and 2,
man.
Tactics Ogre, Night of Lotus, the two Fire Emblem games.
Yes.
On there. Yeah, no, it's a
That's
good.
how I got introduced to
It's
Fire
a
Emblem.
good ass library.
Yeah.
It's a really good library. So I don't even know how the fuck we got here, but anyway, so yeah, so
I mean, but just like you were talking about the Nintendo, but I think Nintendo I understand they're making a shitload of money, but before they even get into that, I think they should really consider putting their virtual console on the Switch. Like, not just the regular NES games, but because they have to realize that their generation is not the NES generation. The reason why the NES Mini sold well is because you had people like, you know, over the age of 40 buying the shit.
like our boss.
Yeah,
right?
like our
He's
boss, yeah.
37 or whatever.
He doesn't even play video games.
and he wanted
bought
one, though. Yeah, he bought one.
And so, but I feel like they put the VC market or the virtual console market, you know, from the GameCube all the way to the Game Boy Advance, even some DS games, they can try to manage that. Put that on the Switch, man, they'll make so much money.
I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. Like, I think,
Yeah.
they already said they're not doing it at this point. And
That's so sad.
it is frustrating. It is the one thing with the Switch I think they've really botched, because this is the perfect fucking device for Virtual Console.
Yes.
The handheld nature of it, it's like they never really filled a virtual console on the 3DS with much of anything worthwhile.
They just had the regular NES games on there.
Well, they had Game Boy
and Game
Boy, and then some Game Boy Advance games on there too. But that's it, though, and that's what's frustrating about it to me is that I think they've never served that. Because we didn't get GameCube either. That was a rumor too, right? We were going to get GameCube games on Virtual Console, and that's not happening either. But
see, my thing is with them is they're shutting down all these sites that do have their. I mean, it is their IP, and it's in their legal right to do that. But if you have to go through this much legal trouble, to shut down these sites, that means people still want your games. All these people that are pirating these games with. If you go on sites, 4chan, and like the most toxic place on earth, people like those people like, hey, I will buy this console right now.
There's just no way to buy it, right? There's no way to buy it legally because there's so many games in those old libraries that have no way to play them besides having the console and the cartridge or getting an emulator.
Yeah,
and obviously buying the console and the cartridge generally will cost you a lot of money and a lot of headache too because the console has to work, the cartridge has to work, the battery within the cartridge needs to be okay.
Exactly.
There's a ton of factors there that make it prohibitive to obtain some of these games and actually use them. So it's frustrating to see Nintendo do that earlier in the year when they don't give us a way to experience their old stuff. A lot of their old stuff. It's always the same fucking games. It's Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, which they've remade now on 3DS too. It's like, it just. What about the more obscure shit like Bomberman 64, Bomberman 64: The Second Attack, or fucking Custom Robo, shit like that? You know, some of those, or like the old F-Zero games, and you know, it's like. So I feel like they're not serving their audience by doing that stuff. They're kind of just they're pissing everybody off because now we all have to hold on to whatever ROMs we fucking have, you know, stored away, and that's all we have now because of what they did. So I don't know. They're a weird company. I appreciate them on one hand, and then at other times I fucking hate their guts the way they do things. And I don't know. Just hearing them talk about mobile though. I know this is inevitable. I knew this was inevitable with them, that they're going to continue to go into mobile. What I hope is that they don't use their primary development teams for these mobile games, which largely they have not so far. Fire Emblem Heroes is really the only example that I know of that was made by one of their primary dev teams. I think maybe Mario Run as well, actually. But that one's not a constantly developed for game, so that was kind of made and just put out there. But Fire Emblem Heroes is made by Intelligent Systems, which is one of their studios, one of their first-party studios. So what I hope is that they continue to do partnerships with known quantities in the mobile realm, like Cygames and Niantic and stuff like that, that they don't need to use their own resources to make those games, because they don't. The reality is they don't.
Yeah, you're right.
As long as they're quality and they look like Nintendo products, they will sell. They'll make money off it. So...
hopefully they get a better. I don't know if it's a better marketing person, but hopefully they change. I know they seem like one of those companies that do have a lot of old heads that don't really like to change their ways. Hopefully they can get some young blood in there that like, hey, maybe you guys should do this. But until then, you know, all we can do is wait.
Yeah, so moving on. Next story, building off of this topic we've been talking about for 2 weeks now, Activision Blizzard. So between the last recording and this one, some interesting stuff has happened with Activision Blizzard. They've lost 2 CFOs. One for Activision Blizzard itself, Spencer Newman. He was the Activision Blizzard CFO. He left the company and was... actually, he was let go by them, and then he got quickly snatched up by Netflix. And then Blizzard, actual Blizzard CFO, Amrita Ahuja, left for a job at Square. So Square,
that's interesting.
Square, not Square Enix, Square, the company that they make those little squares that you swipe credit cards with. Like the little mobile thing.
Okay.
That a lot of like small vendors and food trucks and things like that use. Which is a weird shift, but yeah.
Actually, that shit is insanely popular.
I know it is. Yeah. No, it makes sense, but it's weird that this happened within a week. Like these happen within days of each other. Both of these.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if this has anything to do with the stock dropping, but
yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of weird shit going on right now with these companies, in particular Activision Blizzard. I mean, all the stuff we talked about in the first episode given that, and then what we talked about last week and the stocks, like you're talking about now, there's a lot of weird shit going on with them right now. I don't think it's like any raise of alarm or anything, like any kind of thing to worry about from a perspective of them being in trouble. I don't think that's a concern really, but it's just interesting to see that there's a lot of change going on there, and that there's kind of a lot going on within the company overall, not just Blizzard itself.
Well, I mean, a lot of people kind of predicted this. Especially with that, not that. I mean, even in the article it says it. From the not too long after the controversial announcement of Diablo Immortal, like we kind of saw this coming, and
yep,
it's just really sad. I mean, even Activision has some quote unquote classics, so it is sad to see that whatever Activision gets their hands on instantly becomes a money machine and goes into the ground, dies. I mean,
yep.
Say hi to Tony Hawk Pro Skater for me down there, Diablo. Because
hey man, what was the last one they did? Was it Pro Skater 5 that they released? Like a couple. They released the Tony Hawk game like 3 years ago, didn't they?
Really?
Yeah, and it was fucking horrific. Like it was fucking horrific. It was like there was barely enough animation for it to run. Like it looked like a PS2 game on a PS4. It was insane. I think that it was one of those things they made a game just so they could retain the license to make more games in the future, because that was like the deal. They had to release a game every so many years in order to retain the license. So that's what that game seemed like from the outside. I mean, I don't care about Tony Hawk games, but it was just a funny thing to see at the time, because I remember Tony Hawk was like promoting it and shit in 2015. Really? Yeah. When it came out, it was just a butt of so many jokes. It was a really funny one. So
wow. I don't remember that game. The last game I played was on the 360, I believe, but I can't recall. Maybe I got that mixed up with the EA's game Skate. Yeah, and that was a way more superior game at the time. But anyway, I mean, it's like everything that Activision touches just dies, and to see Blizzard go out like this, or Blizzard going out like this, and don't get me wrong, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, but to see this phase, this chapter of Blizzard is kind of
this is the dark times. Though. Yeah, this is the dark times, and whether they come out of this or not is what I'm interested in. What happens the next year or two with them? Like, what are we going to get out of them? Are we going to get more mobile announcements? Or are we going to get Diablo 4? Is Warcraft 3 Reforged going to be good? Is Vanilla World of Warcraft going to be good? I don't know, and I'm really interested to find out, because these things will determine their future. Honestly, if they find a lot of success in mobile with Diablo Immortal and then whatever else they're making, I mean, Activision chases the money, and they seem to be in control now.
Hey,
so
man, we're going to get a Overwatch Battle Royale game.
I mean, I don't know. I might play it. I'm a fucking degenerate.
Oh my god! If we get a Warcraft mobile game with Warcraft skins,
fuck that. I'll fucking kill somebody. That shit is horrifying. But all right. So moving on. Last story we have this week. This one made me laugh. I'm just kind of including this one in here just because it kind of caught my eye and it was weird. So Slightly Mad Studios CEO Ian Bell said that they're developing a console, a home standalone console that they said they plan on having it out within the next 3 years, and they don't have exact specs for it, but they said it will be comparable to PCs that you can build 2 years from now, and it will maintain 120 frames per second for virtual reality play, and it will cost about similar to what he expects the next console generation to cost, like PS5 and whatever Xbox's next console is. And I read this and I just thought, bro, you're insane. There's no way you're going to be able to accomplish all these things. I wish you guys can
see a look on my face right now.
He's giving me a death stare because this is ridiculous.
I mean, let's be honest, guys. You remember at the start of this generation, we supposed to have like at least 4 or 5 consoles come out. Supposed to have Google come out there. What was the Ouya? That was supposed.
Well, no, that wasn't Google's. That was something else.
That was something else.
That was just a Kickstarted.
Oh,
thing,
really?
Remember? I'm pretty sure that was a Kickstarter.
Okay, yeah, okay, you're right. And then there was another console that was supposed to be like a streaming console platform thing. And that was supposed to come out around the same time the PS4 and Xbox One was supposed to come out. And then I believe Google was supposed to have their own Android-based console.
I think that's true. Yeah, I remember hearing those rumors. It never happened, but
yeah. So my point is, just leave it to the professionals, bro. Like, I mean,
what they're promising here is so silly, though. 120 frames per second for VR. I mean, dude, and is saying that it's going to be equivalent to very fast PCs 2 years from now, and it's somehow going to cost like $500. That's fucking impossible. You can't have that level of power and have that low of a cost. There's no way. I mean, this thing's gonna cost like $800.
I agree.
Or they're gonna eat shit on every single unit they sell.
Yeah, I mean, we are, but I agree. We do need something in this kind of. I mean, obviously we had a big three, but we do need something to kind of shake things up. But I mean, look, we had the last.
Do we though? Do we really?
No, I don't think we do. Honestly,
no. I'm perfectly.
PC is that.
PC is that space. Yeah, exactly. That's.
Because I mean, I was thinking like maybe back in the late '90s we had the 64. 64 PS2,
the Saturn, the PS1, and then the Sega Saturn, right?
Where were the Dreamcast? What generation?
Dreamcast was 99.
So what generation would that fall?
That would be the PS2.
The PS2 generation? Okay.
Yeah, PS2 GameCube.
All right.
But it came out before PS2 and GameCube.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Like a year before both of them, actually.
Yeah.
That thing was dead by the time...
Because I bought one.
I think that thing was dead by the time the GameCube even came out.
It was because of the pirating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well, they stopped manufacturing it the year the GameCube came out, I think. Like, that thing was only on the market for like a year and a half before they discontinued it.
Yeah, because the GameCube came out and then PS2...
PS2 came out in 2000, and I think the GameCube came out in 2001, I want to say, November.
PS2 blew it out the water.
Yeah, and the PS2 was already a meteoric success
by
the time the GameCube came out, but... I think the Dreamcast stopped production of it in, I want to say, April of the 2001. So that was like 6 months before the GameCube even came out.
Okay.
So that thing's kind of a weird one. But yeah, we had a weird window where we only had 2 consoles for a brief period before Microsoft got involved with the Xbox.
Yeah.
But we have 3 right now, and I don't feel like there's space for another one. Like, what market are you trying to sell to? That's what all these other ones tried with, like the streaming box and the Android based box. And I mean, maybe you could do a dedicated VR box, but is that really in demand enough?
No,
I feel like Sony has that market anyways, right?
Not.
Like Sony has that though with the PSVR already.
And
so
in HTC and the PC market, they have that.
So that's what it sounds like they're going for, is some sort of VR market, but I just don't think there's much there unless they innovate and really push VR, like in terms of what it's used for beyond games. I don't think there's a purpose to this thing, And I don't think you need a box like this to push VR either.
You don't.
You can use a VR with a PC, and like what I would love to see out of VR is being able to see like live events and things like that through it,
Actually,
not necessarily playing games.
This reminds me, actually, it just happened like a couple weeks ago. Soulja Boy. I
heard about this.
Came out with his own console that actually got cease and desist by the Nintendo.
What was this? Do you know the specifics of this? Because I didn't really look into it.
So what happened was, you know how I think it's called AliExpress or Ali something, where people make their own stuff, their own products, and you can sell them.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called though, like Ali's Express or something like that. Anyway, one of the people that made a emulator box, you can buy it for like $50 and it has like a whole bunch of different games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He actually purchased the license from that guy or partnered with that guy and started actually pushing a whole manufacturing thing and start pushing out because he has a lot of money. He actually made about a couple of $1 million off this product already. Yeah. And
but it was an emulator box.
It was like an emulator box.
That played Nintendo games, I'm assuming.
It played Nintendo, PlayStation.
Because Nintendo's the one that sent the cease and desist, right?
Yeah, PlayStation did, but it had PlayStation games on there. Had some 64 games, had some Dreamcast games, and everything like that. So it was like you're like getting like a mini PC design for these games, you know what I'm saying? But they just put it in like a really cheap plastic case and it looked like a Xbox Slim.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was making money off of it, and he was trying to tell everyone, like, he also had, like, a portable emulator console as well that didn't take off. Yeah. So,
that's funny, man.
Yeah,
because I saw this floating around. I didn't really dive into it much, but
yeah, it was funny. It was he was advertising it, and But Nintendo actually sued him, and I guess they sent him a cease and desist. I haven't heard anything else from it as of lately.
I heard he stopped already.
Yeah, he already stopped.
He already stopped.
Yeah, he already stopped it. Yeah, but I haven't heard like if they're gonna pursue more charges or like royalties or anything like that.
Who knows? Who knows how much money he made off it? But yeah, I just don't. I don't know if the space has room for more hardware. I don't know if it.
I do agree that maybe there should be like a retro console type deal. But
that would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. But how do you do that without? You have to include all three of the other guys. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, because obviously their games are the ones you're going to be playing on it, and then Sega too. If you want to be fully retro, right? Yeah. So you got a lot of mouths to feed there. I don't know if you can even be profitable with that kind of venture. I mean, obviously, I don't know the numbers, but that's a lot of companies you have to have involved, though, from a royalties perspective.
Well, I mean, even the companies themselves, they can feel that. I mean, they are doing it with the minis, but
do it. See, this is the thing with the minis that frustrates me. As much as I like the minis that Nintendo did, and Sony's was a joke, but as much as I liked them, I wish they went a step further and made them actual devices rather than just little boxes that played 20 games.
Yeah.
Be something that's online.
I was just about to say that.
Like a Nintendo classic, like a retro Nintendo. Just call it like Nintendo Retro box or whatever you want to call it.
And you can download, and they add games to the market.
You can download games from all their previous generations that, kind of obviously allows this. Obviously, certain technologies are harder, so like DS would be tough because of the touch screen.
I'm not
the Wii would be tough with the Wii remote and stuff like that.
GameCube games.
Yeah, GameCube, N64, NES, Super NES, you could do all of those easily in one box. And then even like Game Boy Color and then Game Boy Advance, you could probably do all those too. Just have a box like that, and you have a market like a virtual console, like we're talking about with Switch, where you can play all these games, because there's a market for this. I want this. I would buy this. Like, I know I want it on my Switch, but if they
want to be greedy with it, like I said, they can put out in packs. Like, we got the GameCube pack. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they're selling boxes. Yeah.
I mean, like
they totally could do that.
They can have like where it can have expandable memory or whatever, and you can just download it straight from their site. Like, got these stream of GameCube games coming in, or if PlayStation want to do something like that. I mean, PlayStation Now, but I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you said Soldier Boy actually made some money off this, so clearly there's a market for this. It just seems like Nintendo refuses to fill it though, because they're the one everybody wants their shit from.
I want their shit.
Yeah. And I do too. There's a ton of old games that I don't have copies of, or I have copies of that don't work that I would love to play.
Baten Kados right now, I would play that shit. Like,
I have that, so.
Oh, well, fucking lucky you then.
You have a GameCube, right?
Yeah, I do, but I have to go through so much to hook it up. Like,
it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you do need. Well, you kind of do. You do need an HDMI adapter for most TVs now. Yeah. It's a little involved, but it's not that crazy. But
it's not.
But the thing is, if they put it in a box though for us, where we could just download it and play it, I mean, sold.
Yeah.
Right? Like sold.
Instantly.
So I don't know. Maybe they're working on this. I just don't think they are though.
I don't think they are.
They don't seem to care. It's weird though. It's weird that they don't care. They're releasing NES games in a rental format with the Switch Online thing.
I look at Nintendo like Disney, right? Disney has a ton of fucking shit on their backlogs.
Yes. Yeah.
They won't put on stream or anything like that. They re-release the DVDs or Blu-rays every once in a while, and I think that's how Nintendo kind of frames themselves as well. But I mean, we're getting a Disney streaming platform, so that's soon going to change. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're going to put all their classic shit on there.
Yeah.
So,
whoops.
And Nintendo, I think if Nintendo watches Disney, I think they're like, okay, maybe we need to dive into our retro shit a little bit more. Like, just do it, bro. Like,
well, you want to talk about streaming too? I feel like these older games are perfect for streaming because you don't need much data to stream those old games because they're so small. You don't need much of a connection at all to be able to play them at a feasible rate. Like games now, streaming them is hard because there's so much fucking data that needs to be moved.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff.
These older games are like
1 gig.
Yeah, they're like a megabyte. They're not even.
I'm talking about like GameCube games. Like,
even GameCube games though. Those are like 64 megabytes. They're not that big. Those mini discs were not. They didn't hold that much data on them. So yeah, and even I'm trying to think of what the exact number is. I think it's like 128 maybe, 128 megabytes, but that's nothing, dude.
You sure? I thought it was more than that.
I mean, a regular CD only holds 600. Like a regular, like, full-size CD.
And they have a mini disc, so yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. I know it was more. I know it was less than what a regular CD would hold. But even if it was a full CD, 600 megabytes is not a lot of data. Like, that's minuscule.
Yeah.
So, by today's standards, I mean, I download that in a second.
Just think sometimes they're scared. Like, I think like they look at the GameCube, even though the GameCube to me was a success. It wasn't like a super PS2 success.
It's one of my favorite consoles.
But it is my favorite consoles as well.
Yeah.
But like they look at like the Wii, and then they look at the Wii U.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe they're scared to do these things, but, I mean, you have proof that people want this stuff, so I do think there's room for another console, but it's not the console that people are thinking. So, it's a retro console.
Yes.
If they come out, if Nintendo was like, hey, we got a retro N64/GameCube thing, you know how many that shit would sell off like that.
Well, they're not doing it. They didn't do an N64 Classic this year, and that was a huge disappointment.
Yeah,
I would have been first in line to buy that thing. You know, if the games list was right, and it would have been right, probably based off their track record with the first two. So, they're weird with this stuff lately. Like, it seems like they pioneered this whole retro craze with the Wii Virtual Console. Like, they kind of kicked this back off, that people care about old games again and want to play old games, and that was like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Now, and they seem really reticent to keep pushing that, though. Like,
maybe it costs a lot to put on their infrastructure. Maybe that's the deal.
You might be right, because I remember the Wii U came out and it had a virtual console, but it didn't have anything on it. And then they would put like 4 games on it a week. Yeah. You know, instead of like what? I never understood what was going on there. Like,
but I just don't understand it, because you're right. A 64 game maybe was like 35 megabytes.
Yeah, those games were those games were fucking tiny, dude.
Yeah,
and I mean, any Super NES and NES. I mean, that's you're talking like it's a joke. It's not even worth discussing. Like, they're minuscule.
Yeah, so I just don't see why that would cost a lot of money. Well, you know, I'm not in networking infrastructure business, so I can't say shit.
I mean, it could be the way they make the way that their emulation works on their network.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's. I mean, we're just speculating at this point, but for some reason they don't want to do it. So, all right. So moving on. That's it for news this week. We're gonna move on to the games that are coming out this week. So. There's a few games actually coming out this week. First one is called Suicide Guy Sleeping Deeply on PS4. Then we have Inside My Radio on Switch, Bury Me My Love on Switch and PC, BQM Block Quest Maker on Switch, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, Hive Jump on Xbox One and Switch, Blacksmith on PC, Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey on 3DS, and then New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on Switch. So, unlike the first time we did this, there actually are some games on here that I know what they are. You want to talk about Tales of Vesperia?
I've been looking forward to this game forever, man.
I mean, this is one of my favorite Tales. Probably my third favorite, probably.
And you're not alone. The majority of the Tales JRPG community agrees that this is the best Tales game they have ever made. I like this game because the heroes, the story, the combat was just.
I think they were. I like Symphonia better, and I think I like Xillia better than this game, but. It's close with Xillia and Vesperia. I think they're very, very close in terms of how I feel about them. I think Symphonia, I just have a weird... That was the first Tales I ever played, and that one blew me away when I was younger.
That's what everyone else says. Like, that's their first game, and I agree with that. But me just taking off my nostalgia goggles here, you know? Taking them off. I had to take them off. When I played Vesperia, man, I couldn't put it down. Like, I could not put it down.
Yeah.
It was such a great game. Obviously, I love the Tales combat, and just the hero in that game was so different from all the other JRPG heroes.
He's got shades of darkness in him, compared to what your normal happy-go-lucky JRPG hero is.
The power of friendship.
Yeah, that is not this character. He is way grayer than that, and that is the one thing with this game that really stood out. JRPGs obviously generally have pretty positive protagonist.
Yeah, like usually, see, JRPGs usually go this one way. There's two routes. They usually go like this route where the hero's like super innocent, and then he gets really strong, but he's super innocent still. Or he's like super emo. You know, my parents died, and it's a revenge story. I'm still
an Avenger.
Yeah, I'm still a good guy at heart. I'm Cloud. Aerith died in front of me, head ass. But like. I hate that character, y'all. I'm sorry. I really hate that character.
I don't like Final Fantasy VII either.
But this character, he was really more laid back. He had his own personality. It wasn't like a super serious thing to him. And the characters around him, they were like stereotypes.
Yeah,
but
he felt real though.
Yeah, he felt real.
He was making choices I feel like a real person might actually make.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're right though. The rest of the cast, they are obnoxious and fucking. They are so anime. Particularly the primary female protagonist. She is just the bubbly, super cutesy, doesn't understand anything JRPG girl. And so that's where it's like, it's weird. There's a weird juxtaposition there, but he grounds the other characters around him because of the way he is. So
the way they wrote him, I don't even think they intentionally did that, but the way they wrote him.
But it just ended up working out that way. Yeah. So I do really like this game. Sadly, I want to play it.
I'm getting it on the Switch. I don't care. Nobody's saying.
I'm gonna wait probably until it's like Black Friday this year. I'm gonna wait till it's bargain bin like $10 and probably buy it then and never play it. But Switch is probably a great place to play this game because it's a game that you don't have to pay attention to, generally speaking. Maybe for boss battles you do if you're playing on a higher difficulty, but like normal battles are pretty mindless. Walking around is pretty mindless. Like paying attention to the story, you probably do need to, like, if you care about that shit, kind of pay attention for that. But I think it's still a good handheld game, particularly for somebody who's already experienced it. Like me, I'm not going to be super dedicated to paying attention to it, so. It's kind of a good game to run through.
I completely forgot the story, guys, so I'm about to be blown away by this shit
I actually remember the story, and it is weird. It's really weird. The final villain is not who you expect. Like,
don't spoil it for me.
No, I'm gonna spoil a game that you already played. Sure, but so I highly recommend this game.
Yeah.
I definitely think if you've not played a Tales game or you have not played this Tales game, pick this up.
And you know what? All the Tales games usually have some kind of twist to it, but this one was I remember being like kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of different.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. The twists were the actions that the main character took.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like twists that were like, holy shit, I can't believe the world's inside of a fucking flower and it's fucking blooming and everything's gonna explode. Like it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything like that. It was pretty straightforward. It was a pretty straightforward story, but the main character is kind of the thing that really
like that's what surprised me. It wasn't like. It was just the decision he was making. Like, obviously, if you're watching like an anime or something like that, you ask yourself these questions the main characters do. Like, why the fuck would you do that? That's so stupid. And he would literally say sometime, why the hell would you guys do that? Yeah. That's so stupid. Why didn't we just do that?
He would call people out when they did something fucking moronic. Yeah. That's what I liked about him. He was like dour and really, really practical in the way he did things. And he played off the other characters really well too, because he was like, he would see them do something just like so anime, and he'd just be like,
"What are you talking about? Like, what are you doing?
No, we're not doing that."
Like in the other Tales games, like Xillia and Mysteria, those are the main two I just played recently. Like I said, one guy, both the characters in Xillia were anime, like. Juno, what's his name? Juno?
Jude. Yeah.
Jude, to me, his character, his fighting stance was cool.
No, he was great to play as.
Yeah, he was great.
I really liked him, though.
He was timid.
I thought he was actually kind of in the vein of... I can't remember the main character's name in Vesperia, but he wasn't...
He wasn't like Yuri. He wasn't...
Yuri, that's what it was. Yeah, Yuri Lowenthal?
I think so.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
He wasn't like Yuri. To me, he was more timid. He was way more timid. The other characters around him made decisions, and he made the decisions based off those characters.
Yes, you're right. He was trying to find his way in the world, whereas Yuri already knew what he was. So there's a difference there. I just think Jude, like, if we had fast forwarded 10 years, would have been more like Yuri, probably.
Okay, I can.
So that's kind of...
Now, maybe he was like that in Xillia 2, because I think Xillia 2...
I didn't play Xillia 2, so I don't know, but...
but then in Mysteria, you had, like I said, this, this character, you know, she escaped from prison.
This is like Naruto, dude. No, the main character in Hysteria is like a fucking shonen protagonist. I can't handle it because he's like this guy who's like clueless, and he doesn't know anything, and then everything fucking happens around him, and he's the main character. And
I'm thinking about Hysteria. Then
Hysteria, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm thinking about Hysteria. It's two.
Oh,
of them.
Hysteria. That's the one with the female protagonist, right?
She's
like the evil.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
Her fucking. I think her parents. Her parents were killed. She got put into prison. She had to get out, and then every character she came across, she was like, "I'm just using you as a weapon to get further," and then she slowly starts becoming more peaceful. We're just
spoiling all the Tales games here. But case in point though is that they're kind of hit or miss, and Vesperia is one that I can wholeheartedly recommend. I think it's solid. I think the gameplay is solid. I think the story's solid. I think the characters are solid. I think everything about it is solid. It's worth your time if you're into JRPGs or you've played Tales games and you like them and you've never played this one. I would recommend it because this game only came on an Xbox 360. It never came to PS3 here in the States. It did in Japan, but that version never came here. So I think this is the first time this game's been on a PlayStation console.
Yeah, I thought it was re-released on PS3. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it never. No, it was only in Japan. It never came here. It was something that people were desperate for, and they never did it.
Okay,
like, they
because they had that deal with Xbox. I do remember that.
Yeah.
But tell me some more about this Mario and Luigi, man.
Yeah, so the other game on here is Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. So this is one of the Mario and Luigi RPG games, like Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which they actually remade that and released that last year. I never played that game. Bowser's Inside Story, though, is the one I did play. And I fucking love this game, actually. Like, this game is really cool. It's got a really quirky villain for a Mario game.
Yeah.
And so you play as Mario and Luigi, but it's a weird thing. They're inside Bowser for the entirety of the game. And Bowser is basically like a dungeon. Right, that you walk through and you have battles in, and you have to do these puzzles to like move Bowser's insides around to do certain things. Yeah,
what is going on?
It's really weird. And then you play as Bowser on the outside in the outside world, and he is the one that interacts with the villain mostly, and it is pretty funny because the villain is named Fawful, and he's just this ridiculous, nonsensical character that just makes fun of. He just says this weird ass shit all the time. But I really like the game. The fact that they remade it and in fully in 3D. I want to. This is another one that sadly I want to play. It's just it's a game I've already played, and I don't have time to play it right now. But
well, I mean, if you buy it now, you can play in April when everything's clear.
Well, I'll just buy it in April then.
Okay.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend this game to people as well if they've never played this game. I think it's 100% worth your time. It's very fun. The gameplay is really fun, really reminiscent of like the original Paper Mario or Super Mario RPG in terms of its gameplay. And the actual leveling is pretty cool from what I remember. And as I said, the story is like, it's not like some fucking, amazing story or anything like that, but it's fun.
This is fun.
The villain's fun, and he's funny. And
most Mario story-driven games are like that. They're just really fun,
So I would definitely recommend this game. The only other one on this list that I know of is obviously New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. This is a remake of the launch game from the Wii U. Yeah, I could care less, but
me too.
It's a game and it's coming out.
All right, so let's move on towards these games here.
All right, so topic of the show. So game of the year 2018. So Montrell and I both made a 1 through 5 list of our favorite games from this past year, and we both have some honorable mentions that we want to talk about. Do you want to start us off with some of your honorable mentions?
Yeah, I'll go with my honorable mentions first. Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. Assassin's Creed Odyssey made it on my honorable mentions list.
Yep. As we talked about already, it's that would also I'd put that on my honorable mentions as well.
Okay.
Even though I've only played it for 5 hours, I feel pretty confident I'm going to like it the more I play. So
all right, and it looks like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu or / Eevee, whichever one you got. I really like the game. My girlfriend, who's not really a gamer, I actually like the little multiplayer thing that we do. You can catch Pokemon with each other. puts a
That's
little
interesting.
it puts a little trainer next to you. You can do dual battles with the other person controlling your own Pokemon as well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I also have the Pokemon Let's Go on my honorable mentions.
Okay.
As I said, I've only played it for 8 hours, but I'm surprised how much I like this game. I was really skeptical when they first announced this, the lack of the wild Pokemon battles and just the way the game looked and everything. It seemed like they were making it for young kids, and that's what this game is. Let's be 100% honest. This game is for children.
I disagree.
However,
with you. I think
however, the reason I say that is because they made your starter Pokemon fucking obnoxiously overpowered.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It breaks the game balance to such an obnoxious degree that I had to put it in my box. I don't use it. I don't use the Eevee they gave me because he's just insane. He destroys everything. Like, he can beat the entire game by himself with no... Like, that's what it feels like so far. Every time I've ever used him in a fight, he one-shots whatever I'm fighting. Like,
yeah, it's my
nuts.
Pikachu does that.
It's nuts. They made him... I mean, the reason is they gave him, like, evolved stats out of the gate, and then they gave him perfect IVs in every stat. So he's got the highest stat potential possible in every single statistic. So it just makes the game like really trivial. So
and he can learn every move in the every move in the game.
Well, no, he can learn a move from basically any type.
Yeah, okay.
One for every one of the evolutions that there is for Eevee, which is a lot of types. There's 8 of them. So he's very diverse in the moves he can do too. So that's why he can basically solo the game, because he doesn't even have like type disadvantage really. Like, obviously fighting is still super effective against him, but if he kills the fighting Pokemon before it gets to attack, it's irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
So that is a design choice that kind of annoyed me, because I don't like the idea of not using my starter, but to make the game fun for myself, I had to put it away because it was destroying everything. The other thing I do like with this game, though, too, the thing they changed, this is a first for me. I don't know if this has been in recent Pokemons that have come out, but they gave you a Pokemon box that you carry around with you.
That's pretty cool.
You don't have to go to Pokemon centers to switch your Pokemon in and out anymore.
That's pretty cool.
This is a massive fucking change that completely changes this game for me. Like, this makes this so much more fun because I'm using about 10 different Pokemon in my team, and I'm planning on using more. I'm just swapping them in and out as I'm going, like leveling them all. I have like a huge team now that's like really fluid. I'm using all the Pokemon I want. I don't have to sacrifice anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to be beholden to types at any given time because I can just swap it out of my box if I need a different type, you know?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think
I'm liking it.
Yeah, I think they did a design choice like that as well because they figured a lot of people already played the game and they just want to experience Kanto in 3D.
Which is true, I do.
Yeah, so I think it was a give or take. I mean, they could have made it harder for veterans who already played in Kanto, and then they could have made it easier. So I just think they just decided to go easier.
They did. But the thing is, when you put your starter away, the game's actually fairly challenging. Like,
okay.
The Pokemon that I'm raising that aren't my starter, I mean, I'm getting beat down depending on the trainer. Like, gym battles are actually challenging, and so it's working for me in a lot of ways. Like, just that one thing, just doing that one thing, putting the starter away, really changed the game a lot for me. So
yeah, I mean, I liked it. I especially love the wild Pokemon change. I think that's the greatest change they ever did.
So you like the no battling part?
Yes, I like it because
well,
they could do it like, if you want to battle them, you should be able to and still catch them like that. Yeah. But I really like that Pokemon show on screen.
Yeah.
So if I want to run through, the Moon Cave or I forgot the other name of that cave was, the Mount Moon. Yeah. Mount Moon. If I want to run through that one, or the Rock Tunnel, which was like terrible at the time.
Yeah, so I agree with you on this front. I know what you're getting at, is that going through places that were... Because normally in a Pokemon game, you go through grass, right? Yes. High grass, and you get into Pokemon battles randomly. You don't see the Pokemon, they just happen, they're random. But in things like caves and on the ocean and stuff, they were random everywhere. So it was obnoxious going through those places because you'd get into a battle every 10 steps, and it would take you 3 hours to get through the fucking cave. Yeah. This game obviously takes that out of the equation because there are no random battles. It's
exactly.
The Pokemon, you can see them, you can avoid them. If you want to fight them, you can. If you don't, you don't. So it really streamlines the experience in the sense of how much time it takes to do things. I like that as well. That's why I'm saying I'm surprised how much I like this game, because as much as they casualize some of the stuff, it's like, it actually kind of works for me. It's bringing me back in. I forgot how much I like Pokemon. Like, it's
I
really fun.
I think, and hopefully they shake things up with this new game they coming out with. That's what they're hinting. They're shaking things up, you know.
Yeah.
But I just liked it because I was experiencing Kanto again. They did do some things with the story. They changed up the story a little bit.
The story's so weird,
man.
It's so weird because like Oak gives you the Pokédex at the beginning of the game, and he's like, "Yeah, I made this Pokédex thing," and then Blue, who's the rival from the original games,
he's already a gym leader.
He's already a gym leader, and he says to you at the beginning of the game that, "Oh, I didn't have a Pokédex when I went on my journey. I had to write locations on paper." I'm like, "What are you talking about, bro? Like, you were in the game. You got a Pokédex. Like, what?
And then I didn't make it to Red yet, but apparently he's still in the cave. But
is he? Okay, that's exciting.
Apparently, no. He's the gym. I mean,
is he the Pokemon champion?
He's a Pokemon champion.
Got it. Okay.
And apparently, because you beat him, I mean, I'm not spoiling this for anybody. It's like a 20-year-old fucking game, guys. Pokemon. Get over yourself.
It's not Charles Dickens.
Yeah. So apparently, since you beat him, that's why he goes into a cave, in the Cerulean Cave, for Solitude. Because you remember in Gold and Silver, he was just in a fucking random ass cave for no reason.
Yeah, well, he was a badass.
Yeah.
Dude, that shit was terrifying. I remember when I was a kid, I played Red or Blue. I had Blue. And then I bought Gold. And I remember playing through the whole game. I love Gold. It's like my favorite. Gen 2 is my favorite.
Yeah.
But I remember you go through both regions, Johto, Kanto, and then you get to that cave, and you go all the way to the top of it.
He doesn't even say anything to you.
You're like, you get up there, and you're like, oh, am I going to fight like a legendary or something? Like is this like going to be like the Mewtwo thing? And it's like, no, there's a trainer up there, and guess what? It's fucking you from Red and Blue, and he doesn't say shit to you, and he has like a bunch of level 85 Pokemon, and you're not ready for it. Trust me, bro. You're not ready for it, and he destroys me. He destroyed me when I was a kid. And I was like, what the fuck? This is crazy. So, that was a cool thing. So the fact that he's in the game, that's cool. I actually really like that.
I think he was in Moon and Sun or something. Sun and Moon. I think
was he?
Yeah,
really?
I think him and Blue was in Sun and Moon.
They're trying to make a thing with these guys. Because I actually saw an anime apparently called Pokemon Origins.
Oh, that's like bro. Don't even get me started.
Well, I watched it.
It's only so fucking good.
It's only 4 episodes, though.
I know, but it's so fucking good.
I wish they'd make a whole series,
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. I was really disappointed that it was only 4 episodes. I was like, I didn't get enough out of this. This is sad. So it seems weird that they're trying to do something with that. But.
Yeah, man. Like, and you know what's funny? This is how I know we're old, right? So I was on Twitter and like this.
I mean, I threw out my back last week. That's how I know I'm old, dude.
I'm about to be 30 in like 4 weeks, y'all. But if you play Pokemon from the beginning, you understand that there is no autosave. Even in the brand new Pokemon games, there's no autosave.
Yep.
Someone was actually complaining on Twitter. It was like, what the fuck? Where's the autosave at? And it's like, I looked at his Twitter handle. I looked at his profile. He's like fucking 18. And I'm like, yeah, you're born like 2001.
What he doesn't understand is that autosave would actually be really bad in a Pokemon game because guess what? You're fighting a legendary. You're fighting that Articuno or fuck it, Mewtwo. You're fighting Mewtwo, and guess what? You lose. You failed. And then the game autosaves, and Mewtwo's gone. And guess what? You can't go back and get him because fuck you. So fuck your autosave, dude. That's not... It's just not a... Like, obviously, they could design the game differently to incorporate autosave where Mewtwo doesn't go away if you fail the battle, but that's always been a thing. So I don't... Whatever. I don't think it's a big deal. Like, it's not hard to click the menu, hit the save button, and save. You can save anywhere. It's not like save points. Yeah. Like in an old JRPG. You can save literally anywhere you are. There's no restrictions on it. So, I don't know. It's like... I kind of a give and take with autosave. I don't...
So I'm gonna move on though.
Fair enough.
Another game that I have on here that surprised me is Kirby Allies. Kirby All-Star Allies, I believe it's called.
This is the one that on Switch.
Yes,
that came out this year.
Yeah, that game is fucking fun as shit. I didn't. That game's fun. It's almost like Kirby Air Ride meet Super Smash Brothers. It's really fucking fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. It's sad. I really like Kirby, but I don't I don't ever play his games.
Oh man, his games are really good.
I don't know why. There's just something about him that they never appeal to me. I've never.
I was the same way until I actually played. Like, you can't watch someone play a Kirby game. You have to play it yourself.
You gotta play it.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you can't watch a Let's Play. It's one of those games you actually have to experience and do yourself. And then another honorable mention for me is Final Fantasy 12 Remastered. Obviously, we talked about that game earlier. A lot of changes went into that game.
What about it did you like this time that you didn't like?
Class change.
Was it the class? Was it really? Did it really have that big of an impact for you?
It does, in my opinion. It's like,
I mean, I always felt like it would. Like, it would just change the way the whole game plays out.
Also, they sped up the battles, so it's not as slow.
Got it. Okay.
So you can do a lot of random encounters and stuff like that if you want to, and the battles move way more. It's like that's why I say it's like, it reminds me of Final Fantasy 14 offline, because that's how fast the battle goes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really cool, and you can change it. I'm not that far yet, but you can change the classes of your teammates as well.
Okay.
But I think your class is like almost set in stone, like what you can do.
That's what I thought. I thought that what I read was that you pick a class for every character once you get them, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's what they are.
Yeah, I think at one point you can try to respec them, but it's not like a whole, different thing. So you have to really choose like who you want your tank to be, who you want your DPS, your mage, and your healer, stuff like that. So, but you can go.
So yeah, I noticed on one of my honorable mentions, you don't have this game on here, Monster Hunter World. So I've got this in my honorable mentions. This was in my list early in the year, but things played out in a way that it fell off for me. I still think it's a really good game.
Oh, it's a phenomenal game.
But after playing, we're going to talk about Generations Ultimate, both of us are, but after playing Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, it just, going back to World afterwards, it just doesn't feel right.
So that's why I took it off my honorable mentions list.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it just felt like a lot of shit was missing. Like, obviously, it's like one of those things.
The depth was gone.
Yeah.
It was like a Monster Hunter game in name and in looks, but it didn't have a lot of the systems that make it a Monster Hunter game.
And I understand they did a lot of things differently with this game, with Monster Hunter World. And I appreciate those changes, and I love those changes, but it was just... to me, it was the monster variety that was just lacking, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, so there was that. That was really stark after playing Generations.
And the lack of styles.
Yes.
Like, that... Generations really fucked up the game with that shit, because now, when I play a Monster Hunter game, I really want to choose a different style for my weapon.
Yeah. So what he's talking about are styles, like it changes what combos you have access to and the way your weapons, what abilities you can use with your weapons in Generations Ultimate. In World, there are no styles. Every weapon just has its basic combo package, and that's it. There's nothing to change. Most of the weapons, honestly, are really basic, too. Like, Dual Blades is the one I played the most, and there's only one or two combos that you really use with it.
Yeah, Hammer's, like, really...
The game, honestly, is all about positioning. That's all it's really about with World, and as much as Monster Hunter is 75% of that most of the time, that other 25% is missing. The way you build your character and the way you decide what styles you want to use and things like that. It's just lacking a little bit of that depth that makes the game truly rewarding for me.
Yeah, because not only do you get 14 different weapons, and we'll get to that, but you get... We'll just come to Generations when we mention that, because it's obviously on.
Yeah, so why don't we move on, because I think we're going to talk about World some more when we talk about Generations. So my last honorable mention is Telltale Batman Season 2. I've liked the Telltale games, some of them that I played. I like Batman Season 1. I really like what they did with the Batman lore. They really changed things up with it. They kind of turned some characters on their heads the way you traditionally think about them. They have different roles within these games. Like, a good example from this one is that the Riddler is kind of the oldest villain in this version of the Batman universe. Like, he's the original supervillain within this version of Gotham City. And it was a really cool turn of events with him, like seeing how they built that character and made him interesting. And then they did that with a number of other villains as well. A lot of the other villains, they have roles that they traditionally don't have within Batman. So that was what I liked about this series. Unfortunately, it had the same old Telltale issues with the engine running like garbage and the game crashing randomly and shit like that.
Wasn't that running on Unreal, though?
I don't even know. No, they had their own proprietary engine they used, I think.
Okay.
Which has always been a plague for them. But the overall, I liked it a lot. The last episode in particular was cool because you got 2 completely different episodes depending on what choices you made the first 4 episodes. So it would play out. From what I read, I remember reading after I finished it, that there were literally only 3 scenes within the entire episode that were carbon copied between both paths. And otherwise, the rest of it was completely different scenes, different lines, different like events that played out. So
it's just interesting how this company went under. Like,
well, the problem is guess what? I didn't play it till now. This came out last year in like March. It finished in March.
Oh, okay.
So this is their issue. This is why I think they went under. Is that their episodic model? I don't remember if I've said this on the podcast or not yet, but the episodic model for games has 0 benefit to the consumer. 0. None. The only benefit it has is to the company, because it gives them the ability to make a 5th of a game and release it and make a shitload of money off of it, then release another 5th of the game and make a shitload of money off it, then release the 3rd 5th, the 4th 5th, and the 5th 5th. And that model, I think at first was cute, and it was novel, and people were like, oh, it's like a television show, and they did the whole cute, like, next time on Telltale Batman Season 2, they did that, or previously on Batman Season 2, they did that shit with the episodes, and it's cute, but then after you do that for 11, 12, 13 different series, it's kind of annoying after a while, and I've never, ever played a Telltale game before it was finished.
Wow.
Never. Because I refuse to pay for this model. This model's stupid. Why would I pay $25 up front for something that's not going to be finished for a fucking year, and then when it is finished in a year, I can buy it for half off within like 3 weeks? Why would I do that?
That's true.
What's the point? I can't fully experience it anyway till it's done, so why would I buy it before then? Like,
that's
you're basically pre-ordering a portion of a game for the first 5th of it. It just makes no sense to me. It never made any sense to me. And I think that is why they never adapted. I think people got sick of their model and stopped buying their games, and their games never innovated enough on their own from a gameplay standpoint. They did from a story standpoint, but not from like a gameplay angle. They're largely the same in the way they play out. I think they just never changed with the times, and they stopped getting people excited. And the other thing is they don't have any of their own games. All their shit is on IP that other people own. Walking Dead, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Borderlands, The Wolf Among Us. These are all things that other people own. Like, they don't own any of these.
They made The Wolf Among Us.
They did. I think maybe that's the only one they own, I guess, but that's based off of fairy tales. It's not even their idea necessarily,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
They're playing within other people's universes always, and that is an issue for a company. And I think that's why nobody really wanted to save them, because there was nothing to save. You're just saving the employees, really. You're not saving the company. Like, the company has nothing of its own. So
yeah,
which is a shame, because this game was fun, dude. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the people did save, or a lot of the game companies did hire the employees that left.
The final season of The Walking Dead is being made by Skybound, which is the company that makes the comic, The Walking Dead comic. They brought a lot of the team on to finish that season out, and actually the first episode of that's coming out next week.
Okay, cool.
So that's going to get finished, but I think after that, though, why would Skybound continue? There's no reason to, obviously. I mean, they're really just doing it because they want their brand, The Walking Dead, to not have the stain on it from Telltale. I could imagine that they might continue it, maybe, potentially, but I doubt it. I really don't see that. Unless they see significant money in it, I just don't see that, So, I don't know. It's a shame, but... Okay, moving on to our actual lists. So, I think I'll get us started here. My 5th game on the list for 2018 is Octopath Traveler. So, I... was really hyped for this game going into July, and Octopath Traveler is a JRPG. It's a turn-based JRPG. It is a really interesting game. I think it falls short in certain ways that disappointed me, but overall, I remember playing this and I really had fun with it. I thought the combat was one of the best iterations of the traditional turn-based JRPG combat that I can remember. I was surprised with how fluid it was. I thought the combat was fast. I thought it was, in terms of how quickly, like, it didn't take like 20 turns to finish a random battle. Like, they were over within 2 or 3 turns generally.
Yeah.
And that's what those kind of games need to keep my attention, because I hate traditional turn-based JRPGs, like Final Fantasies and shit like that. I fucking hate those
battles
games.
are, or
yeah, just how long they take to do, like random battles and shit, and how boring they can be generally. Because there's no like skill involved really. Like, you're just hitting attack till things die.
Yeah.
And then you heal. This game's kind of not like that as much. It really encourages you to use a lot of different abilities in order to win battles.
Okay.
Because enemies have specific weaknesses to things, so you're not just going to keep hitting it with your sword until it dies, because your sword might not be effective against that particular enemy. You might need to switch to your spear or use magic or something like that.
This is going to sound so superficial of me.
Yeah.
But I really wasn't interested in the game because of the graphics.
Really? So you didn't like the... I love it. I thought it was really... I think it's really pretty. It's. I mean, the thing is, this isn't original. Square tried to pitch this as something that they came up with.
What was it? What was the pitch? What was it?
What it was like... It was like 2... I don't remember what they called it.
They didn't call it 2.5D, because that's what
no,
it is.
it was like 2D, 3D or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember. But
they
I remember they tried to...
HD 2D or something.
That's what it was, yeah. And they tried to market this as like a thing, and I'm like, guys... Nintendo did this 20 years ago with Paper Mario. This isn't special in any way. Like, it looks really pretty. You've done a really good job with this. However, the pop-up book thing that you're trying to like tout, Nintendo did this with Paper Mario. So this isn't a new thing. Like, and they tried to make it look like it was a new thing, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't knock anyone who likes that style. I'm just over the whole retro thing. So the whole retro 8-bit thing, and I understand people like those type of games, but that's really one thing that turned me off of it. But I did like how, you can take different paths and stuff, or 8 different characters.
So the cool thing about the game that I liked is that you pick your character at the start, and unfortunately, what is annoying, the game doesn't tell you this, but the game, you pick a character at the start, one of the 8, and they give you a little blurb of what their story is and what they do and what their job is and stuff like that, and that character is your main character for the whole game. You can't take them out of the party. So, unfortunately, the game doesn't tell you this. I played about 5 hours of the game before I realized this, and I picked a character that I fucking did not want as my main character. I picked one that I wanted to do early so I can get him out of the way, and ended up finding out that I'm stuck with him for the whole game. So, I ended up starting over. But, there's a weird replayability to it though, because the early game obviously changes depending on who you choose. So if you choose one of the healer, for instance, as your starting character, you're gonna have a tough time because she doesn't do a lot of damage.
Yeah,
and you're gonna have to go find you because you have to go recruit the other characters. So you have to walk through the world and have battles and stuff to go to their town and recruit them.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through their starting storyline to fully recruit them. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. So you could pick 8 different characters and have 8 different experiences with the game based on, maybe more actually too, depending on what direction you decide to go. Because say you pick character A, right? And characters B and C are next to them. You could go to character B first, or you could go to character C first,
Yeah.
So you get to choose what direction you go and who you recruit in whatever order you want to go in. So that's it's an interesting wrinkle of replayability to the game. The problem with this is that, unfortunately, given this design, the stories of the characters are not linked in any way, really. So this is the problem that I had with the game, is that the narratives of all 8 characters are completely separated from each other. So you'll be character A, and characters B, C, and D will be in your party with you.
They don't have any
They don't
interaction.
say anything.
Yeah, okay.
They have no interactions within the story scenes. Now, they do have little interstitials between the characters, like little scenes where they'll talk to each other about the events that are happening, depending on who it is. But that's it. That's the only interaction that exists.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, when you're playing the stories of these characters, they're considered like alone when they're in the story scenes. Mm-hmm. Like they're by themselves, basically. Which, given the fact that you have 7 other party members with you at any given time, kind of is annoying. Like, it takes you out of the experience a little bit, because that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not what's actually happening. So it's kind of a give and take. I like the separate storylines thing, but at the same time, it has some cons to it. So,
does it affect the world in any way or anything like any of your decisions or anything like that? Okay,
no. They're just linear storylines. They have specific places that they make you go, and the story plays out, and you fight a boss battle, and then you move on to the next story place.
Gotcha.
It is a little grindy as well if you don't get every character out of the gate. Like, you might not be high enough level to do some of the second, like Act 2 and Act 3 and Act 4. Like, it goes up pretty significantly for each one. So you'll be character A, for instance, and you'll do his level 1 story segment, like his Act 1.
Yeah.
And then Act 2 for him will be level 15. So obviously you have to go do a bunch of shit to get to level 15 in order to do his next one. So that's the intent, is that you run around and get all the characters. By that point, you're ready to do the Act 2s for a lot of the characters. And then by the time you do all the Act 2s, you're high enough level to do the Act 3s. So it's kind of a grindy game in that sense. Because if you don't want to do some of the other characters' things, you're kind of don't have a choice in the matter, really.
Gotcha.
So, but I did like this game a lot overall. So what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Dragon Ball Fighter Z. If you play Dragon Ball games, you know that they weren't the most intensive, heavy fighting focused games ever. What I mean by that is you have certain games that are like fighting games for fun. So like anime games are usually like, you know, Ninja Storm games or One Piece games or Dragon Ball games. Yeah. They're not really technical in their fighting. They're just all design and all fluff. They're not really like technical. Where your technical games like your Soul Caliburs, your Tekkens, and your Street Fighters, they look good, but they're designed to be like taken seriously as a fighting game.
Yeah.
To me, this game was the first Dragon Ball Z game to be taken seriously, and an anime fighter to be taken seriously, because it has all the mechanics there. And it was just a really fucking dope game. And it's Dragon Ball fucking Z. Yeah. Like, bro, like,
Dragon Ball fucking Z.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, like, it was really dope. And even though it was a really technical fighter and everything like that, they pulled like certain scenes during the fights, like, you know, you can do your special moves. Certain scenes were pulled straight out the manga, or that's cool. Certain special moves are pulled straight out the cartoons and things, or the anime itself. And even certain characters will have like certain banters depending on what characters you pick. And you can pick 3 different fighters on each team. So it was just very interesting to see what can come out from that game. And it really surprised me when it first launched, because another reason why I liked it, because it took the place of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which failed horribly.
Yeah.
Everyone was looking forward to that game, but
it was a disaster.
It was so terrible. And this filled that void for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is what 3-on-3 fighter. And I don't know, it's just really designed well. They put a lot of effort into it, and you can tell.
Yeah. Okay. So number 4 for both of us actually is Smash Bros. Ultimate. So we've talked about this game a little bit. I put this on here. I would say, I'm going to be honest, if I had more time in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and it continues to live up to my expectations, this is probably the game that would have gotten knocked off for me.
Really?
Because as much as I love it, and I said a couple weeks ago that they gave me everything I wanted in terms of having every character that's been in the series and a ton of stages from the old games.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just Super Smash Brothers. There's really not a whole lot here that really draws you in from a new perspective. Like, there's no new content in here that I haven't experienced. The spirit mode, like the story mode, is whatever. The
spirit mode reminds me of event mode from Melee. If you ever played that, where you had to...
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, just on a map.
Yeah.
With, you know, like a Mario World map kind of thing.
There's not a really big... I mean, there is a story, but...
It's dumb.
Yeah, if you play Brawl, Subspace Emissary,
yes,
like, that had a really good, dope story, in my opinion.
I mean, it was a cool way to, like, introduce all the characters, I think, in that game.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem I have with this game, is that it's just not, like... They didn't do anything... Like, the modes just aren't interesting, you know? It's like, it's really, all it is for me is a multiplayer game, and it's sad that it's come to that point, basically, but given that, I still think it's a fantastic game, and it's worthy of being a game of the year. But
It definitely is, but this is just coming off of Dragon Ball Z Fighters, and I love technical fighters, but I feel like they tried too hard to cater to the technical crowd.
Yeah.
Because Smash Brothers, even though it's a party game, guys, like it's really competitive, and it's on Evo, which is like a huge fighting game community scene.
Yeah.
And people wins millions of dollars off this scene, and it is up there. And I think they try to cater to that audience, which is good. They recognize that audience, but I feel like a kind of other stuff's got sacrificed for that.
They're also doing this thing with these spirits, right? That you get in the single player mode.
Yeah.
And they're doing these events, right? That you can like get special spirits from and stuff. And it's like, who fucking cares?
It's
like,
a gotcha game.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it feels like. It's like they're almost like doing like gotcha shit, like weekly events, which is a gotcha thing.
Yeah,
that is a thing that gotcha games do to get people hyped and to get people to buy things. Obviously, there's nothing to buy in this game from that perspective, but
they may go there.
Who knows? But the thing is the spirits. They don't matter unless you use them in the single player mode, and you can use them in multiplayer. But who wants to play that way?
Yeah,
like who wants to make a spirit team and play it against your friend's spirit team? Who cares?
You can have an unbalanced spirit. I mean,
I don't. But who cares though? I don't want to do that. That's not a fun way to play against other people. Like I want to just pit my skill. We barely
play with items on.
I know. Yeah, I want to pit my skill against someone else's. That's what and if you do have issues or somebody's too good, that's what the handicaps are for.
Yeah, let's talk about the items real quick, just for like 2 minutes. I don't know what it feels like with the other Melee. With Melee, I didn't play Brawl, but with Melee and original Smash Bros, the items weren't really that impactful. They were there, but they were like novelties. You know what I'm saying? Like you may have one or two, like the Megaton, the hammer, and then maybe the baseball bat.
I'm gonna disagree with you on this.
Okay,
I think the items really unbalance the game. They've always been that way. I actually think in this one though, they're actually not that impactful.
Really?
Like, I don't think they're that... I actually think they're kind of weak, like, for the most part. Except for... Because, dude, the hammer... Think about the hammer, right? We've played a number of matches. How many times has the hammer spawned in our games? Once?
Yeah, once.
And we've played, what do you think, 30, 40, 50 games?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a really low spawn rate for something. But that is balanced, I feel like. However, it takes away some of the craziness that happens.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the original Smash, the hammer was like... Fucking every game a hammer would spawn, and somebody would win the game because of that shit. And it was stupid, but it was fun. But I think they really toned the items down in this one, I feel like, kind of to make them more...
maybe that's what it is. The items don't... When I say impactful, like, the items don't feel like they matter. Like
they don't. Not in this one, no.
When in the other games, like you said, people used to fight over the hammer when that popped up.
Pokeball.
Or the Pokeball.
Dude, the Pokeball Melee, like...
Yeah.
Dude, if you got one of the legendaries and a Pokeball, I mean, you're potentially clearing out the entire fucking screen.
Yeah.
They're insane.
It just doesn't feel like that in this game. And then another thing I had an issue with was the stage, with just the regular stage, the stage hazards. Like...
Yeah.
I don't like in Melee because they really didn't have any stage hazards like that in 64. They had a couple, but it wasn't like impactful.
Yeah,
they had a couple.
They had like you remember they had like bumpers. You remember that?
Yeah,
the stupid bumper item.
Yeah,
a lot of the stages had bumpers on them.
That
was like a stage hazard.
I do remember Kirby had the tree blowing,
and then the ships in the Fox level would shoot at you. And then you had the bumpers on the Peach or the Mario level, and then the Pokemon level, like a Pokemon will pop out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'd be like Charmander, and shoot fire at you.
It wasn't like, I mean, you'll rarely get those ones where they can one shot you, but I feel like in Melee, it was just, I mean, not in Melee, but fucking Smash Ultimate, it's just fucking ridiculous. I'm like, bro, like, what the fuck? Maybe because I didn't play them on the Wii. Some of them are from the Wii, and then some of them...
They are. No, the items have gotten more ridiculous over time in terms of what they can do. I mean, dude, there's an item, if you play stock, that it's a flag. I don't know if it's in Ultimate, actually. I don't remember if I've seen it or not, but if you hold it, you just press A and you hold it in the air, and then it pops, and you get a free life. Like, that's insane. Are you kidding me? That's insanity. Like, you give somebody a life, like an extra life. It's nuts. So, I do think, I don't know, the items are more of a thing for when you're playing with people who aren't serious about it. That's really what I've always used them for. If I'm playing with people who actually, like, want to have a competitive game of Smash, then, generally I just turn them off, but...
I don't know, it just always felt so fun. Like, even when you're playing, like, semi-competitive, like,
I agree. I think this may just be because we're older, man, and we've experienced 5 of these games now, and this is the 5th one.
That's true.
this just doesn't have the magic it used to. As much as I love it, and I love the roster, and I like the fact that they're bringing in third-party characters, and the stage selection is the number of stages you can choose from is so large. I love all of that, but at the same time, it just feels like something's missing. You know, it's just.
I don't know what that's what it is. I feel like something's missing. I just don't know what the fuck it is.
I don't have as much fun as I did when I played Melee or 64 even. You know, when I remember back in the day. So
maybe it's just that nostalgia factor.
It's something. You know, it's something to do with me. Maybe we just haven't figured out the right way to play with each other. You know, it's like because we haven't like had like a night where we all get together and play Smash. You know?
That's
so
true.
maybe that's what we need to kind of do, something like that.
Yeah, maybe we need to have some more Smash Bros parties or something.
Because that was what I remember with Melee is that I would have days where I'd go to my friend's house and like 4 or 5 of us would just play Smash all fucking day. And it was just a Smash party all day.
Melee, man, you know? I just remember playing that shit by myself. Like,
me too. No,
hours.
I know. That's what I'm saying with this is that these modes don't do it for me anymore in the sense that I don't want to play them alone. Once I unlocked all the characters, I stopped playing. I haven't played since.
Yeah,
I really haven't. I don't want to play anymore unless I'm going to play online or with you guys. That's it. So I don't want to take away from the game though, because the game's really well made.
Really good.
It's really good. Yeah. So I know it's sounding like really negative. These are personal things that I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's why this game's on the list, because I recognize that this is a fantastic game.
That's just these are just our opinions on it. Like, you know,
our personal issues with
every game's not perfect, and we're just pointing out the flaws in this game.
But from an objective standpoint, I can't hold this off the list.
Oh yeah,
given what I'm saying right now,
it's huge.
I love this game. I think this game's fantastic, and I'm going to have this game for the entirety of my Switch lifespan. You know, and whenever you want to play Smash, I'm always down to play. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of thing with it is it's just a game I'm going to have with me wherever. You know, it's one of those games that I feel like I could just go to an airport and, you know, see 2 other people with Switches and be like, hey, you guys got Smash?
Guaranteed they have it. Yeah.
Guarantee they have it. Guarantee they'd want to play with me too.
Exactly.
That's what this game is. So that is something that's special about it. And as much as I'm having issues with some of the things that I've talked about here, at the same time, it's still fantastic. Yeah. I think this game is way better than Brawl. Brawl is terrible. It's the worst Smash by far. I think the Wii U one was a step in the right direction, but it did not have enough content for me. Yeah. Didn't have enough characters.
A lot of people said that.
And the stage selection, the stages you had to choose from in the Wii U one was just pathetic. Yeah. There was like 20 stages. It was horrible. Yeah. And they were all bad. A lot of them were bad stages too. They didn't really have any of the good ones. This one has like 70 or 80 stages that you can choose from, and they all have Omega versions as well, which is like a flat with no crazy hazards or anything like that.
It's like a more competitive version of the level. Yeah.
So you have a lot here to work with, and they're adding more. They're going to keep working on adding DLC characters and stages too. So I think the game's in the right place. They've gone in the right direction with it. I don't know what the future holds for Smash Bros.
I think this is probably going to be the last one for a while. I think they're going to go into the vault for a couple of years.
I mean, I agree with you. I said this a couple weeks ago, I think this series needs to change in some significant way.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a call-off. This is like a sending off to like the original.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like for Sakurai, that he put everything into this game that he could. And they got this out so quick, too. Yeah. Because the Wii U one only came out 4 years ago.
Bro, dude made Melee in like a year and a half.
Oh, my God. I don't understand how that...
And that's considered the best one out of all of them, even this one.
Yeah, I agree. But, dude, I mean, think about it, though. Because the gap between Melee and the Brawl was 6 years. The gap between Brawl and the Wii U one was 7 years. And then the gap between the Wii U and this one was only 4. So that's really impressive, given that. It seems like they went straight into development on this game. They must have.
They must have knew that either the Switch is going to take off, or I don't know. They probably wanted a Switch game, but I'm glad they did it. So my third one though is like kind of a sleeper hit, and I talked about this last week, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Like I said, guys, if you haven't played this game, please play it. The narrative is good, storyline is good, the gameplay is really good. It's not an Uncharted ripoff. They got puzzles in there. It's very challenging, And I just think this is a really sleeper hit. Shame on Square Enix for not marketing this enough, in my opinion.
They put these games out to die.
Yeah, man.
I don't get it, man. Because the first one took off.
Yes.
People love the first one. And they put it out in the spring, I believe, right?
Yeah.
The first one came out in like March or something of the year it came out.
I believe so, yeah.
I want to remember. The last two have come out in the fall, and they both fucking tanked.
Because they put them up against other games that they know would fail.
I mean, this one not as much, but the second one, yeah, they put it out the same week as Fallout 4. And
yeah.
It was the only other game that week that came out. I remember.
And I mean, I bought it, but...
Yeah, and you were one of the few.
Yeah.
Because that game tanked and probably almost killed Crystal Dynamics as a studio because Square, for whatever fucking reason, put it out that week.
And Crystal Dynamics...
It seems like they just don't do any service to this game. Like, they don't care about this.
They don't do any service to that studio. That studio is a very talented studio, man.
That's what it seems like. And I've never been interested in playing these games, which seems silly to me, but I just don't, like, want to play them for some reason.
I mean, that's understandable, but I mean, a lot of people feel that way. But I played them because at first I'm like, I'm remaking Tomb Raider. Oh my god! But I played it. I'm like, oh, this shit is very different. I like it. And I mean, unfortunately, it's one of those games that's going to get swept under the radar.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to get another one? Or you think
I think
this
is the last one
for a while. For a while.
This was supposed to be like.
I mean, because this is the third one. Right?
Yeah. So the game was supposed to be like this. Like you had Tomb Raider. You had Rise of Tomb Raider, then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So the game was supposed to be leading up to where Laura becomes the actual Tomb Raider that we have on the original PS1.
Yeah.
So, like, in this game, she gets her dual guns. Like, she starts dual wielding her guns and shit like that.
That's cool.
So, like, it has some cameos to, like, the original PS1 Tomb Raider and shit like that, where, which is pretty cool. So, in the original Tomb Raider, on the third level, you fight a fucking random ass giant T-Rex in the ruin. You're like, what the fuck? Like, if you're playing this, because up to this point, you're in the ruins of Tomb Raider and you're fighting like regular bears, hyenas, some shit like that, and wolves and shit like that. And then you get deep into the tomb and stuff like that, and like fucking T-Rex just comes out of nowhere. You're like, oh shit! So in the game, oh fuck! I'm gonna spoil it for you guys, but there's like a cameo for that T-Rex, and it's really fucking dope.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. They took it out, but then they put it back in there because people demanded it. Because the people were like, "Yo, this they data mined it." And they're like, "Why did you guys take this out?" And they're like, "Oh, we didn't want to, ruin the experience." But they put it back in there. But you can go with your third one.
Well, yeah, that's a shame. It's a shame that the game never. It just doesn't seem like it gets a lot of traction.
Man,
like,
it's so good.
When it came out, too, there were some people really touting it, but there was just a few. It was only a few.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there was a lot of buzz around it.
They kept comparing it to Uncharted.
It just came and went. Yeah, that's an annoying thing because I haven't even played them, and I can tell that they're not Uncharted games.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of get annoyed with the way people analyze games sometimes where they'll compare them to things that it doesn't... Just to make a shallow comparison, because that is a really shallow comparison. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I can tell you, just based off videos I've watched, that Tomb Raider is not an Uncharted ripoff. Like, this game has a lot more combat depth to it, character progression, there's actually quests, there's exploration, there's, you can do things off the beaten path. Uncharted has none of that, except for maybe the fourth one, and that's a stretch saying that. They are extremely linear games that have no character progression whatsoever. They're just shooters. They're just third-person shooters that have some light platforming elements that are not difficult. And I'm not, like, shitting on Uncharted. I like Uncharted, but putting it in that vein is really doing a disservice to Tomb Raider, in my opinion. And that's from somebody that hasn't even played them. So, like, it just seems like a real... I don't know. It's shallow analysis to me. So it's a shame that the game gets stuck with that label too, because I think that turns a lot of people off. Actually, I think a lot of people don't like the Uncharted games, and they don't want games like Uncharted. They want deep experiences that actually let you explore and are a little bit more open, more like God of War or something like that. That aren't necessarily fully open world, but have some side things you can do.
That's a great comparison.
That's what seems like Tomb Raider is that it's not a fully open world game, but it's got some off the beaten path stuff you can do. Yeah,
and you got character progression, and you can craft stuff, and it's really dope.
Yeah.
But I see your third one here.
So, do you want to skip this until we get to yours?
Let's skip that one. Yeah.
Okay. So my second one is Spider-Man PS4. So I just finished this on Saturday. Platinumed it.
I didn't play it yet, guys. Sorry.
I really liked this game. I think there. This is a caveat to the way we talk about games, is that both Montrell and I are going to be critical. Like, this is my number 2 game of the year, but I'm going to tell you some things I really don't like about it.
Okay.
So, I like the story. The story in this game, fucking phenomenal. Like, 10 out of 10, dude. Like, they executed a Spider-Man story as well as you can do it, in my opinion. Like, all the characters were firing on all cylinders. Like, they were funny, they were quippy, but they were heartfelt at the same time. There were some really, like, good key emotional moments for Peter and for some of the other side characters as well that really hit home. The end of the game is pretty dark, honestly, considering what Spider-Man is as a character generally. And I just think they really executed that part of the game flawlessly. Like, it's better than any of the movies I've ever seen for Spider-Man.
Really?
Yeah, the story-wise, 100%. I'm not even hesitating when I say that. And I mean, that's not necessarily saying a lot, because Spider-Man movies have been to bad in most cases. But there were the way they incorporated all the supervillains as well was really fucking cool, and it was seamless. It didn't feel like they were forcing anything. It didn't feel like they were just putting villains in there to put villains in there. Like, they actually had a lot of history with Spider-Man. And because this was a known thing, obviously, is that you start this game like 8 years after he started being Spider-Man,
which I'm glad they did.
Yeah, and I'm glad they did that too, because they got the ball rolling, like, with the story. So there was none of that build up or anything like that. You got a little bit of an introduction to things like his state of being at this particular moment in his life, but that didn't hinder the story. It was actually really fun to see where he was and who he was, where he was working, the place he was in certain relationships with certain characters, particularly MJ and then one of there's a doctor he works with early in the game. It's really cool to kind of see his relationship with that guy as well. And So I think the story, from the story perspective, they knocked it out of the park. Yeah, I actually don't think they can do better than this. Like, I think the next game story probably will be worse than this one.
Really?
I think that's how well they did.
That's how well they did.
I think the bar's too high. I don't think they can hit this again.
I mean, Spider-Man comic-wise has always had an interesting feel, because he's different from... A lot of people relate to Spider-Man, white, black, whatever, because... Yeah. He's not rich, unlike a lot of superheroes.
That is one thing in this game that really is fun to see, like, because Batman is one of my favorite superheroes, but he's always the one, like, he's the one with all the money, and he's got unlimited funds, and he can have any gadget he wants. Spider-Man's like, dude, he's like pulling cell phones out of the trash to get parts so he can make gadgets for himself. Like, that's how poor he is. Like, and dude, like, it's just funny to see a character like this be so heartfelt, though, and at the same time, like, there's moments where he's really down, but at the same time, he's still upbeat, though. He's still positive. That's about Spider-Man is what I like. Mm-hmm. He's not like he's not like Superman, where he's just a perfect Boy Scout all the time, but he's human. Like, he feels human, right? Like, where Superman doesn't feel human. He just feels perfect, and that's not good. And
then Batman, so in my opinion, he's so stoic, and
cold and calculated. Yeah. I think that's why the emotional parts of this game really hit home, is that Spider-Man fits within that narrative structure. Yeah. Whereas Batman generally doesn't as well, depending on how it's done. It can, but usually Batman works better with tragedy than other characters.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, he's always been that way. So, from that perspective, I love the game. The traversal as well, the swinging through the city, fucking awesome. This is some of the best, like, gameplay, just pure fun. Like, honestly, it's so fun that I honestly kind of, like, I bet in a couple months I might just turn the game on just to fucking swing around New York, because it's that well executed. Okay. It feels awesome. So, those two elements of the game, amazing.
So, what don't you like about the game?
The rest of the game, this is where the problems start to come in. The side activities that they give you to do are annoying, to say the least. They're tedious. They're not rewarding. They're not fun to do, and they don't really serve any particular purpose other than giving you the ability to buy suits and gear upgrades. And because, dude, there's so many. You find backpacks. There's crimes you have to stop throughout the city that randomly spawn. There are these bases that you have to defeat, Like there'll be a whole bunch of enemies in a base, and then you have to beat all the enemies, and then that you've beaten the base or whatever. And they give you these little objectives that you have to do within the base clear. Like you'll have to, combo, get a 20-hit combo, or knock an enemy in the air 5 times, or web throw an enemy 5 times, shit like that. That shit is so annoying to keep track of. Like, I just want to go in there and kill all the guys and be done with it. Because if you don't do those little things, you only get a third of the reward.
Oh, really?
And you have to do them again.
Yikes, okay.
So, they're not hard to do, but going into the menu and looking at them, and it's just annoying to do that fucking 50 times, throughout the game. And if you don't keep up with these as they come available to you and you want to platinum this game, the end of the game is going to be a nightmare for you, because that's what happened to me. I did about 40% of them probably before the game ended. And, dude, my last few hours of this game was a slog, where you're like, because... So there's these crimes that happen where, like, somebody will steal a car, or try to rob a bank, or rob a store or something like that, and they just spawn randomly around you as you're swinging through the city. And the game will pop them up on your radar or whatever. And they'll have their own little objectives, too, that you need to do. And you need to do 20 of these per district. In most cases, 20 of them. Yeah, and there's 9 districts. One of the districts, you only need to do 5. But the other 8, you need to do 20. So that is 165 of these crimes that you need to do total. And they are random spawns, as I said. So my last 3 or 4 hours of this game was me just swinging around waiting for crimes to spawn. That is not fun. That is not a fun side activity to me. When you're playing the game, playing the story, they're kind of fun when they pop up at first, but eventually it gets to a point where you're just doing them to complete them, to like get the little checkbox that you've done all 5 or whatever, or all 20. And the other ones are really kind of stupid as well. Some of them are like, you go to, like, I did like the ones that were like landmarks, like in New York, you have to take a picture of the landmark, which is cool, but then they had this other thing where there was another thing with pictures where there was like a stationary camera, you had to find something with it, and it's not a hard thing. It doesn't really do anything for me. So I think that's a place where they can improve, is really a lot of those side activities. And I also think I want to say when I started the game, I sighed heavily when I started doing the combat, because it is just carbon copy Arkham Asylum. I thought they improved
it. People said that it was super improved.
And when I first started playing, I sighed. As I played more, I started to appreciate it a little bit more. I think it's actually better than Arkham. I think Spider-Man works with this combat a lot better than Batman does, because it's a lot more feasible to me that Spider-Man would fly 15 feet through the air, because that's what his character does. Than Batman does when Batman does that. And actually, it's interesting because this game's actually a little more restrictive than Batman. I remember in Batman that if you started punching towards somebody, he would just jump at them. A lot of the time, he would just jump from guy to guy, ping pong between like 20 different guys.
That was kind of like their. That's how they marketed the game. That was their thing, though.
And it was silly, and it looked stupid on screen, and it didn't feel fun to play. This game actually is different than that. You can't, if you're not within like 5 feet or even less of the enemy and you punch, you're just going to punch the air. Like, he doesn't actually magnetize to the enemy the same way Batman does. Okay. So that's why I started to appreciate the combat a little bit more in this game. It's not hard, it's easy for the most part. But I will say, though, overall, I don't really like this style of combat. I think it's not deep, really. It's all timing based. It's literally you're waiting for an icon to pop up above your head, you hit dodge, and then you keep punching. And then you hit dodge again when the icon pops back up over your head. It's like really not that thought-provoking. There's a little bit of strategy with how you use your gadgets and where you position yourself sometimes, and the way you approach a combat encounter. But when you're in the middle of a melee of like 10 guys, you're literally just punch, 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 dodge, punch, 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 dodge, punch, 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 dodge. Like, so I don't consider that fun gameplay either. I think the other thing this game struggles with is Spider-Man's control when you're not swinging, when you're not at like full velocity swinging. Very weak. Like, controlling him in tight spaces, oh god, he gets stuck on things. He'll move in the opposite direction you're trying to move. If you are trying to so he'll do wall crawling. If you're on the side of a, say you're getting a backpack that's on an underpass, like underneath a bridge, it's a fucking nightmare, dude. Because you start climbing up the thing, and then the camera will change its perspective, and then all of a sudden Spider-Man spins around because the camera changed, and then you have to reorient your direction and where you're going, and then the camera moves again. It's just weird. And I think movement on the ground is also pretty bad. Like, he does not control well on the ground, particularly, as I said, in combat. Like, if you're moving in combat, your primary modes of movement are going to be hitting triangle to web yourself at somebody. That's really how I played it. I didn't actually use the analog stick in combat almost ever because it's not necessary.
Okay.
You know, because he does snap on enemies. Like, he's always kind of locked onto somebody no matter what. So, yeah, moving with the analog sticks is really weird on the ground. It doesn't work well. So I think that's another area they can improve. And I think the last thing that really stuck out to me was the detail in the actual city when you get close up and personal with things and really, like, examine stuff. It's not great. Which, given they're trying to recreate New York City, obviously they can't get every fucking detail right. I'm not saying that they need every crack in a fucking building to be there, but there were some weird things like on skyscrapers. Just, dude, when you're playing this game, go to a skyscraper and like at night and look inside of it, and you will see the same room copy pasted 100 times, and that's all it is. They don't really want you to get that close to it, obviously. But when you look at it, it's like a funny thing to me. It kind of takes you out of the experience a bit when you notice it, though. And also, I noticed some weird visual bugs with some of the rooms where you'll have like two rooms next to each other, right? And there will be a door, a wall in the middle. But on the right side, you see the wall, and then you go to the left side, and all you see is one big room. It's like broken, visually broken.
Shit, somebody actually tweeted to one of the developers about that. It's actually a trick that they used.
Yeah. Is it something to save, like, resources?
Yeah.
Probably?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Makes sense. But when you actually, when you actually get close to things, you'll notice things like that.
Yeah,
so the game is not perfect. I think, it's not a 10 out of 10. They have a lot of areas they can improve it. But the most important areas of this game, the story to me and the web swinging, they knock those out of the park. So
all right.
From that perspective, that's why this game's so high, because those are the things in a Spider-Man game that I think anybody would care the most about, probably.
Yeah.
Particularly one that's exclusive to a Sony platform. I think story is really important to the Sony audience, because that's what all their exclusives really focus on, generally, is story, more than gameplay. So yeah, really like that game. I highly recommend it to people. Despite my criticisms, it's still a really fun game.
Okay, cool.
So what's your number 2?
Mega Man 11. So, you weren't on the Mega Man fan base bus. You can jump on it now. I'm
on that bus. I love Mega Man.
Yeah, so there are two particularly Mega Man fans. And then you have like a weird hybrid, which is me. So
it's probably me too.
Okay, so you have a lot of people who just like classic Mega Man. They don't want nothing to do with the X series.
100%. Yeah.
And then you have you get the hybrid series. I'll get to that later. Then you got the other ones who are just straight X fans. They got nothing to do with the classic Mega Mans or no other Mega Mans besides that. Then you got the hybrid fans who love the Battlestar series or the Battle Network series, the Mega Man Zero Collection series, who love the classic Mega Man, and they love the X series.
So I'm in between all of those.
Yeah.
I've never played the classic Mega Mans.
Okay.
I know that that probably sounds like sacrilege to somebody like listening to this. Thing is, I didn't own an NES when I was young. I wasn't old enough to have one really.
Yeah.
And by the time I got into games, it was Super NES. So the Mega Man games I experienced was X series, and then the Zero games. Those are the main ones I played. I never really played the Battle Network games. But I love X and Zero. Those are my favorite series.
So my introduction to Mega Man was Mega Man, just the original Mega Man on the Game Boy. And I fucking played that shit for hours, man. Like, you couldn't tell me shit about that game.
Was that a recreation of the NES one?
Yes.
Or is that, okay. Because they did that with a lot of Game Boy games, didn't they?
Did. It only had four boss matches to the 8.
Okay. So yeah, that's what they did. They made like little bite-sized versions of the original games.
So that was my experience with it, and I fucking loved that game. And I had a lot of childhood memories with that game. And then my next Mega Man game, I didn't even actually play X. The first X game I played was Mega Man X4 for the PS4.
Man,
for the PS1.
What? You kidding me, dude? No.
Yeah, I never, because I didn't own the Super NES. I owned the Genesis instead of Super NES.
You fucking degenerate, man. Fucking Sega boy over here.
So I played X4 and X5 on the PlayStation 1. Man. And then I went back and then they had Mega Man 8 anniversary where they remade Mega Man 8 from the NES, but they made it with like updated sprites. Like it was, they made in the style of Mega Man X.
Yeah.
But it was original Mega Man. So this game, guys, bringing it up to speed, this game is the original Mega Man. He's not X, because X takes place like 400 years in the future.
Hundreds of years.
100 years in the future. Yeah. But this is regular Mega Man. And it's not just... They captured the feel of Mega Man. As far as like the music feels real retro. It feels like it's an actual another composer, but you can tell that that composer went back and listened to all the Mega Man games. Like, okay, this is the style they like, because the music's actually really good. And they got this other system called I can't remember what it's called in the game. But
is this the time stopping thing?
Yeah, the time stopping thing. So you can like fast forward time and overpower Mega Man, like overclock him. That's what they call it. You can overclock him, or you can slow down stuff, and it actually works really well with the level design. It's not even though it's their gimmick for the game, it actually feels like a staple. Like it felt like. When I'm playing it, I'm like, damn, why didn't we have this in other Mega Man games? Because it feels really good. They actually put a lot of effort into this game, because I thought coming into the game, I'm like, they released all these collections. Now they're going to make like a shoehorn Mega Man game. But it actually felt really good. And it is, I love side-scrolling games. Like, I love Metro.
I want to try this.
Yeah, I recommend it. I recommend it to everyone.
I do want to try it. I love Mega Man X and Zero. I never played, as I said, the original ones, but I've always wanted to, so I don't know. This probably isn't the one to start with, but it piqued my interest when it was coming out in October. But I don't know.
I mean, the original ones, like you had the original that came out in the later systems, like on the third generation, but the sixth generation, Mega Man 9 and 10, which are. Well,
those are I know those are
current ones. But
those are made in the PS3 era.
Yeah, but they're current ones, but they're like in the retro style.
Yeah, they were the 8-bit.
Yeah, they're 8-bits. I didn't really like those because I'm like I said, I'm tired of the 8-bit craze. I was really glad when this one went with the 2.5D thing, and it did it really well. It's like a way better version of fucking Mighty Number 9. Like, fuck that game, bro. But
what a terrible.
Oh my god, that game was so bad. But let's see, your game of the... What's your number one?
All right, so my game of the year for 2018, my favorite game from last year. This is not even close, by the way. Like, this is like there's a Grand Canyon-sized chasm between this game and the rest of the games on this list. Is God of War on PS4. This game was fucking special. Like, I beat this game in 3 days. I couldn't put it down. Like, it was.
So it's that good?
To me, yeah, it was. Like, dude, it hit on everything. Gameplay, story, the worlds, the lore, all of it, dude. Like, the sound design, the audio, it was all there. Everything, they hit on everything. Like, I feel like this game was as good as it could be. And I was hyper skeptical of this game when it was announced. Like, when they showed this in 2015, I think it was 2015, right?
Yeah.
E3. Dude, I was pissed. I was like,
everybody was pissed.
I was like, they're just turning God of War into Dark Souls. Fuck this shit. Like, this isn't God of War. Like, God of War is an arcadey fucking action game. You know, that's like really skill based or whatever. And that's not what we got. Like, it looks like Dark Souls, the way your character's got that over the shoulder view, but that's not what this game is. This game is a beautiful. It's just, dude, the story alone is just, it's beautiful. Like, whatever I said about Spider-Man, like, ratchet that up a degree, because this game's story, I'm not going to say it, like, emotionally moved me in any particular way. I didn't, like, cry or anything, but I don't often, I don't often feel something when I play games, like, with the stories with games. I think stories with games have a lot of places they can improve, and I think this is a game, though, that I think people can take something from. That this was a really heartfelt story about Kratos, who is a character with a lot of history. And I want to say, too, I am really happy that they did not reboot the franchise with this game. Like, this is a continuation of the games they made in the past. Yes. That is why this game hit home for me. If this was a reboot, this would not have been anywhere near as good to me, because Kratos' history with the series, like the things he's done in the past, plays such a huge role into what he's doing in this game. The way he acts, the way he treats Atreus, who is his son, in this game, the way he talks about his, the woman that he, this woman Faye that he was living with, she dies before the game even starts, and the whole game is you taking her ashes to this mountain that she wanted.
I heard that.
Yeah. And the way he talks about her, and the way he the way he references his own past and the way he seems, they changed him in a way that makes sense. Like they didn't shoehorn change into him. They didn't like forcibly make him like super nice and like happy-go-lucky. No,
super progressive.
He's fucking dour and angry as he's always been, but he's thoughtful now. There's a difference there. His experiences have changed him because, dude, the thing is, because have you played all the God of War games?
Yeah. So what I remember from Kratos is like if you haven't played a God of War game, like this dude's fucking mad as shit. Like his family gets killed, bro. Comes home.
He kills his own family. Remember?
So what happens is like one of the guys tricked him into killing his own family, and he's fucking pissed.
Well, so he was one of the best warriors in Greece.
Yeah, but I thought they tricked him into killing his own family.
Yeah. Like let me explain it fully. So he's one of the best warriors in Greece, but he wants more power. So he goes to Ares, who's the god of war. And he asks him for more power. So Ares gives him the blades of chaos, which are these blades that are basically permanently attached to him that he like can't take off. They like burn into his fucking wrists.
Yeah.
And they're super powerful weapons though. They're like the weapons of a god basically. And but he tricks, like Kratos gets so bloodlusted, like he's so lost in his power and his just ability to kill so efficiently and effectively that he ends up killing his own family. It wasn't necessarily that he got tricked by Ares per se. It's that Ares gave him something that he wanted so badly that he lost himself in it to a degree where he couldn't even recognize his own family. Yeah. And then he ended up killing them. And that haunted him for the entirety of that series. So, by the end of God of War 3, and I'm spoiling a game that came out 10 years ago, deal with it. By the end of God of War 3, he had destroyed the entire Greek pantheon. Everybody was dead. All the gods were dead. He killed all the titans. They're all fucking... He obliterated an entire fucking civilization.
Just to let you know how...
Out of vengeance.
Yeah.
Just to kill Zeus. He killed everybody. Like, so many people.
And he was brutal. Like...
He didn't just kill
the gods' heads as a headlamp.
So it was over the top. It was a bit much as a game, but when you take that, at the end of God of War 3, he's looking at the ruins of Greece. Yeah. Like, everything's destroyed. He's alone. Everybody's dead. There's literally no one else around him, and he just jumps off a cliff. And the idea is that he's killing himself, right? Like, he's like, fuck, what was that all for? And he just throws himself off a cliff. Well, lo and behold, he didn't actually die. He's here. And he fucking goes to he goes to Midgard, which is the Norse mythology version of Earth, basically. Yeah. And that ending where he was at the end of that really informs a lot of what he does in this game. And have you actually played this? Like, did you play this at all or no?
God of War, this one. I plan on downloading this one.
God, man, oh my god, I'm jealous that you get to play this because. Dude, it's like you see in just little interactions he has with Atreus that he's thinking over things that he's done, you know? Like when Atreus asks him questions about some certain things, you can tell that he wants to say something, but he decides to say a different thing because it's just there's too much there for him, you know, that relates to what he did in Greece. And
I heard that interaction was like really fucking intense.
It is really intense because there's a lot under the surface. Obviously, Atreus doesn't get it because he's a kid.
Yeah,
but Kratos, that's my point. Knowing all this with him, with Kratos, really ratchets up that intensity and the tenseness of things. And when it's so that's kind of my point here is that they didn't shy away from his past in this game. I won't say they fully embraced it, but there are moments in this game where his past comes to bear in really important ways that impacts him, Atreus, and some of the other characters around him. Yeah. And it happens in cool ways, too, where his past comes to bear. So all of that told, the story in this game, I haven't even talked about anything else yet, but as you can tell, there was so much thoughtfulness put into the story in this game. They didn't shy away from their work in the past. They embraced their work in the past. And that's what I loved about this, is that they could have easily rebooted the series with this and completely told a different version of Kratos that they wanted to, but they didn't do that, and I think that's to their benefit that they didn't do that. Because I think the future games that they're doing with this, like God of War 2 or 3, whatever comes out of this, they're going to be because there's more that they can mine that they haven't even touched really, and there's a lot there for them to work with. So
yeah, I think a lot of people like myself was afraid that they were going to lose. Like they had Kratos in his character, but they were going to lose like everything that he went through.
Yeah, and they didn't. No, that's my point. They changed him in the right way. They made him, as I said, he's still angry. He still has issues with rage like he always did, but he's more controlled and thoughtful now. Mm-hmm. You know, he was always a smart character, actually, too. That's the thing I think people like. They don't like Kratos was always angry and yelled all the time. It was like Zeus, Athena, I'm gonna rip your fucking head off, kind of shit. But at the same time, he was clever, though. Yeah. Like, he was always clever, and that's why he won, against the entire Greek pantheon, is because he was more clever than they were. They were always, like, pompous and like, oh, you're not even a god. Like, you can't do anything to me. And Kratos would just beat the shit out of them and, or figure out a clever way to circumvent their powers or something like that. Yeah. So he was always a clever character, but they brought it to the fore here is that he's clever in an interesting way and that he evades things that you wouldn't like normally he would have gone head up against in the past. So he's a lot more he doesn't actually want to confront things now. He's a lot
more wiser in his choices.
Exactly. He's wiser, yeah. And having Atreus with him changes the way he approaches things too, because he cares about Atreus more than anything else. So that's an interesting dynamic for him to have there too, that he has to care about somebody else other than himself for once. And that changes the way And Atreus pushes him in ways that are so interesting for a character like him, Yeah. That he has to like Atreus wants to do more, and Kratos has to he's like, fuck, I want to let him, but at the same time I don't want him to get hurt. And yeah. So there's a lot of that give and take too. So I don't want to spoil specific things, but trying to generalize, the story is fantastic. The rest of the game is equally as good. The exploration, the just the general gameplay, so we were talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the way that's like a little bit looser. Like God of War is really tight, the way it controls. Kratos is really he moves exactly. I feel like the way he needs to move. He's very heavy and lumbering, but he's still fast though. He's still got that quickness that he used to have in the older games, where you can block at a moment's notice. And if you hit the block button at the right time, you will do that parry thing that he used to do. Yeah. And you can stun enemies with that. And he's got those power moves that he had where he just fucking slams the ground and shit and blows up 10 enemies. That shit's still in the game as well. So he feels right from that perspective. And I think the exploration is another thing that really surprised me. There's a lot of fun. It's not an open world game. It's not at all. But there's a lot of little areas that you can go to that are just little side areas that have a lot of thoughtful stuff in them, though. They teach you about the lore of Norse mythology. They teach you about the Norse mythology within this version of it in this game. And they do it in a way that you want to learn more. It's fun to learn more. So this game, it just hit every note for me. I honestly can't even think of a thing on it that I would consider a negative, which, given what I was saying earlier, that we talk about games in a negative way, is a really big deal for me. I don't really talk about games this way. Most games have flaws. And if I were going to put a flaw in this game, I almost say it overstays its welcome a little too long. It's a little long in the tooth at the end of it. Where you feel like it's going to end 3 different times before it actually ends. Okay. And at the end of the day, though, when you actually get through it all, that's not really a bad thing. It's still... And it's a meaty game. It's probably 30 or 40 hours. So, all told. And there's a lot of post-game stuff you can do as well that I never got around to, but... I also think the character progression... So, this actually probably would be my one negative. I think the character progression is kind of weak. Kratos levels up like you do in Assassin's Creed or The Witcher, where his stats will go up when you level up. But the skill trees they give you are kind of lackluster. They're not really... They don't feel that impactful. I think a lot of the moves you get from them, too, aren't really useful to me. I didn't use a lot of them. So, I think that is one area they can improve, is the character progression and maybe the itemization a little bit. I think it's a little bit too uninteresting at times, where the choices are kind of obvious. There are differences in terms of you can pick different paths to go down. You can be more sigil based, where you're kind of sort of pseudo spellcastery, I guess, but not really. It's just they're little runes that you use that are kind of cooldown abilities that you can use, but you can focus on those if you want, or you can just focus on hack and slash, swinging the axe or whatever. but I don't think those paths were really divergent enough to really make me want to choose one over the other, though.
Okay.
So, but overall, yeah, this game definitely my favorite game of the year. Like, not even a question. And I recommend this game to anybody that has a PlayStation. There's like, if you haven't played this game, fucking play it. Like, you play this game. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna play it. I'm definitely.
I'm probably hyping it to the point where it's going to disappoint you, but I don't care. It's that good to me. Like, so yeah. What's your number one?
Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate.
Yeah, so this is my number 3.
Yeah,
we skipped over mine, so
because we were both going to talk about it. So
go ahead.
So the reason why this is not number one game, I started playing Monster Hunter in 2004 on the PS2, and this game. Oh, and let me tell you guys,
I'm a noob. I didn't start playing until 3 Ultimate in 2013 or 2012, whenever that was.
Yeah, by that time I already completed like 2 Monster Hunter.
You're fucking way more pro than me, man.
Yeah, man. But this game, it just. First of all, it hit a nostalgia mark for me because I can go back to I think it's called the Kokoto Village, which is the original one and the PS2. Yep. So you can use that as your base village. And this is basically a celebration of the Monster Hunter franchise in its ultimate form.
Indeed.
There's almost every monster from every Monster Hunter game in this game, except for maybe the Monster Hunter Frontier online games.
Great Jaggies aren't in the game, though.
Oh, yeah, and Great
Jaggies. They're not in the game
fuck
either.
Those monsters, though.
Because they've put a fucking raptor monster in every goddamn monster in a game. You can't put 20 of them in.
Yeah, so... but they put almost every monster in this game, and it's just a celebration of the franchise. I love Monster Hunter because not only is it difficult, but it teaches you as a player, and once you get good... at the game, it's very rewarding beating certain monsters that you couldn't beat before, learning their patterns, and just becoming an actual hunter in the sense. Yep. So you may be wondering, oh, Montrell, why is Monster Hunter World not on here? Well, because Monster Hunter World, it does make you feel like an actual hunter, but it's too freaking easy. And the reason why I say it's too freaking easy is because Monster Hunter Generations is not forgiving at all. Like, you have to know your positioning with monsters. You not only do you have 14 different weapons, but you have 6 different styles. So I'll let you guys do the math with how many styles you can, how many possibilities.
84 combinations.
84 different combinations with weapons. And let's just say, like, for me, I went through the game primarily as a hammer and greatsword user. I may have switched it up and went to a shield and sword.
Yep.
And when I did that opened up a whole new part of the game for me.
Well, yeah, you started using that almost exclusively for a while. I was mostly bow for the most part in this because I had played dual blades in World just earlier in the year, so I kind of wanted to try a different weapon. And I'm glad I played bow in this rather than World because after playing bow in World, it just didn't feel...
It didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right. It really didn't. I know you said, like, I remember when we started playing Generations together, and you were commenting about bow because I said I hadn't played it in World, and you were saying, like, oh, it's amazing the way they changed their controls. And I remember we played Generations for a while, and then a couple of our friends got World, and we started playing with them. And I remember playing with bow and that, and I was just like, is this it? Like, God, all I'm doing is dodging and shooting and dodging and shooting, and obviously that's like I'm breaking the gameplay down in a really reductive way because you could say the same thing about Generations, but your positioning in World doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, it's that's just, true. That's
there's no like sweet spot for when you shoot anymore, from what I could tell. Like, so in the older Monster Hunters with bow, there's a sweet spot that you hit, quote unquote, that if you're a certain distance from the monster, you'll do like a critical hit, and the screen will shake when you hit them from that distance. World doesn't have that. It just displays the damage numbers.
Straight spam.
It's just straight spam. And once I figured that out in World, I was like, ugh, this is boring.
See, I didn't play bow in the Generations.
Yeah, I feel like I'm playing a shooter at that point, and it's like kind of weird. Honestly, it's actually kind of fucking weird because you can shoot while you're moving. You can hold your shot. You can do all these weird tricks and stuff in World. That's kind of cool. Like you can jump off walls and stuff, and go down ramps and shoot. It's kind of cool in that sense, but I just feel like the gameplay is more thoughtful in Generations for me.
Yeah, they have in Generations they released it earlier last year, or not the year before last. So this is actually like a upgraded version of that game. And
which they do this with like every.
Yeah, they do this
Hunter.
with every game, but this game, like the upgrade was very noticeable. They added a new style, which is the Brave style, which he used exclusively, and I use exclusively for my hammer.
Yeah,
it added a whole new depth of gameplay with this game that already had a lot of.
The styles are crazy.
Yeah,
they changed the way your weapon plays completely. Like for bow, for instance, right? So the Brave style, it only lets you use one hunter art. Which hunter arts are another thing that aren't in World either.
Oh yeah.
So hunter arts are like cooldown abilities basically that are special attacks or something like that, like kind of a or a mode you can go into that you do more damage or you take more damage. Some of them give
you buffs. Some of them give your teams buffs.
Yeah, but Brave mode only lets you use one, but Brave mode unlocks the full complement of combos for the bow, which none of the other styles do. And what I mean by that is bow allows you, so you'll charge your shot and then you'll fire and then you hit A and you fire again, and that's called a power shot. And then Brave's stance though lets you fire a third time after that for a second power shot, which to me was my favorite way of playing because I felt like I got the most damage out of it. The other stances only let you fire either one time total or one time with one power shot, and then you had multiple hunter arts that you could use. And World had none of this. It's literally you just dodge R2 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 R2, dodge R2 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 R2, dodge, and rinse and repeat. That's all the game is.
Yeah, and another thing with World that Generations had, like with that, the reason why I talk about Brave Stance because that's exclusively to Generations, and this other mode that I didn't use called Alchemy, but it's a really good support class, or style, but. Brave style was really designed for you to go toe to toe with the monster, and I feel like I went toe to toe with the other styles. With Monster Hunter in general, it was always like sometimes you had to position yourself, use your weapon, put it back up, then position yourself again. With Brave style, it was like I can kind of have my weapon out all the time. And go toe to toe with this monster and feel like I'm doing some shit. That's why it was called Brave style or Valor mode in English version, but Brave in Japanese. But that's what's called Brave style because you were punished for sheathing your weapon. And if you're in Monster Hunter, sheathing your weapon can be good or bad depending on your positioning. So not only for the styles impactful, but the monsters as well. And you had all the monsters from every franchise, and you had their ultimate versions of them, or you had their G rank versions of them. Then you had alternate versions of them. Well, there were new
monsters too in this game.
There were new monsters as well. The only thing I didn't like, which is my only gripe with it, was the hyper monsters. They were basically sponges. They really didn't do anything.
This is a thing they've done every Monster Hunter, and they did this in World with the tempered ones as well. They create this like uber version of the same monster, and they're always kind of lackluster. Like they either just increase the stats and they do more damage, or in Generations case, the hyper monsters have these like 3 spots on them that glow. Yeah, if you hit those spots, that will charge your hunter arts faster.
Yeah, and if they hit you with that spot, it does like double damage.
If they use an attack that is generated from one of those spots, like say they have a spot on their face or on their horn, for instance, and they do a horn attack, it'll flare real quick, and then they'll attack you. And if you get hit by it, it does like way more damage than it normally would. So it was kind of a. I agree with you. It was an annoying tier because it was like a mini tier between high rank and G rank.
I didn't like that,
and I hated that because
I hated that tier. Yeah,
it was so stupid. It was like I just wanted to get to G rank. I didn't care about those monsters. Like I didn't want to fight them, and you could only fight them in multiplayer as well. Yeah, they didn't have any of those in solo, so I had to do those with you guys, and I did a few of them myself, but they're just so annoying that they'll one shot you if you get hit by those attacks, and I wasn't a big fan of that. But
and the reason why this is number 1 on my list is because I put so many hours into it. I put almost 200 hours into it.
We were both around 200, all told. Yeah. Go ahead.
And it was just so fun to play with, like, Justin and my other friend Andy, and just playing randomly online. It just had so much content in it that I couldn't not.
Well, we were playing every night for like weeks there, honestly, and I was surprised how deep we got into it. I really didn't expect us to finish G rank. Like we beat G rank. Like we finished the final monster in G rank. We were at the point where we were everything was available to us pretty much.
Yeah.
We stopped at that point, and I may go back at some point actually, because there are things in there that I never finished that I would love to.
Yeah, there's
finish.
still monsters we haven't
Yeah,
fought.
there are a ton of event quests we never did. We
Yeah.
never really went charm hunting very much.
Exactly,
Like we didn't like fully optimize our builds or anything like that. And I wanted to play dual blades a little bit more too.
Yeah.
Which I never really did. So there's more to the game too. That's how after 200 hours, there's still more to do. That's the glory of Monster Hunter, is that it's just endless.
But see, the thing with Monster Hunter World, I feel like I came to a standstill really quickly.
Agreed. I was finished with that game within 60 to 70 hours.
Yeah, I got burnt out really quickly.
I know people are going to say like 60 or 70 hours. That's crazy amount of content, but you got to put it in context of Monster Hunter. Like for a Monster Hunter game, that's
probably 70 hunts.
That's like a third of any other Monster Hunter game. Like as we said, we were at 200 hours. So the thing with World 2 that frustrated me was the diversity of the monsters. That was another point I was going to bring Generations exposed this so hard. I felt this way before I played Generations, but dude, it's literally all reptiles and dragons in World, pretty much. Yeah. That's almost every monster. There's maybe 5 that aren't that.
And like we were talking about yesterday, or not yesterday, but the podcast before, we had different ape monsters, you had different insect monsters and things of that nature that really brought diversity to the cast.
Just straight up beasts like monkeys and things like that. A
fucking Super Saiyan bull monkey thing. Like what the fuck is that? Yeah. And then the final boss was really interesting in my opinion. Turned into like a fucking Gundam mech thing. Like it started out as the small insect monster, and then
it's like a telepathic.
And then midway through the fight, it just turns into like a fucking. It takes debris around the field and turns itself into like a mech, and you're like, holy fucking shit! What am I supposed to do?
That fight was really hard too.
Yeah,
it was a really interesting fight. So. I think World ended up just kind of coming up feeling like it came up short after playing Generations.
I think they did it. And the reason I understood why they did it, so, like, if you didn't have a Switch and you played it on PS4 Worlds, like a lot of people did, or Xbox One, you didn't think you had any reason to go back and play Generations. 'Cause you remember, I was like that. I'm like,
I was the same way.
I was like, I don't want to go back and play Generations. So they released Generations, which I think, in my opinion, kind of branded, or not branded, but kind of downgraded Monster Hunter World for me. Like, I can't go back and play that until G Rank comes out next year or earlier this year.
I don't want to play it.
Yeah,
I literally don't want to play it.
And I mean, they're trying to design that game for replayability. And if people did play Generations, I feel like they don't want to go back to Worlds. Like almost every person. We convinced one of our friends who didn't play Worlds at all. He was exclusively to the old Monster Hunter engine. Yeah. He went back and played World, and he was like, "Guys, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, Generations."
He doesn't like the game at all.
Yeah,
Generations. He's barely playing it. It's funny actually.
Yeah,
but it's sad to me because I think as much as this is a celebration of the franchise up to this point, I think this is honestly a send off to this style of Monster Hunter. I think World is what we're getting going forward, and that's fine. And I think it's going to get better as we go. But
it's just going to take some time to get there.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time to get there too. I think it could be literally like the game after the next one before we really get to the point where it's as robust as what Generations is. Yeah, which is that's not a trade-off that I want them to make. I don't care that the game's prettier, that you have these environmental interactions if the gameplay is not engaging. You know? And that's what I feel like playing World now after playing Generations for as much as we did.
I feel like. Yeah, and that's why I gave Generations my number one, because I feel like it is a send-off to the veterans.
That's why it's on my list, too.
Yeah, I feel like it's a send-off to the veterans, and World is for the newcomers. Yeah. And they're pretty much telling us, kind of like how old Pokemon was telling its old veterans, like, hey, guys, like, sorry, but this is the new style we're going with. And I mean, I understand it because there are a new generation of gamers, and I'm glad a lot of people get to play World. And
I agree. I do agree with that. I was really happy how successful World was at the beginning of the year. I was super happy that this game got exposed to an audience that had never experienced it, and people were like, man, why did I never try this game? And, you know, it was always because everybody's description of the game was like, okay,
it's just like Dark Souls.
But it was like you got to play for 5 hours before it gets fun, and that's not a fun thing to say to anybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate that kind of stuff, but that's not really what it was. It was more of a you need to invest time to get a lot out of it, and once you do, it becomes extremely rewarding. That doesn't mean the game's not fun before you get to that point.
Yeah.
But for veterans like us, like the early game in these games is kind of tedious and annoying. But for a newcomer that's new to the franchise, that early stuff is like, that's getting you ready for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So that's not boring gameplay for a newer player. World kind of accelerated this stuff. It was, within an hour you're fighting Great Jagras probably already. Yeah. Pretty much. So
the thing with World though was, even though it accelerated, it kind of put a wall in front of it as well. Because if you had a friend that was like, hey, let's just hurry up, and if you don't care about the fucking story,
the way they did multiplayer, fucking
if you don't care about the story, and let's be honest, story in Monster Hunter is irrelevant, and they try to add a story. And I never play Monster Hunter for the story. I play it because I just want to experience monsters, Hunter, the gear, and the new weapons and everything. And I just felt like with World, even though it was a take on a new Monster Hunter, a take on the series, and you can go adventuring, and you were in this lush environment. You can track the monsters like an actual hunter and everything like that. The story was just like, come on, I just want to fight the monster, or I know who this is. Like,
well, yeah, it was kind of obnoxious. There was a lot more cutscenes than normal.
Yeah, they're like, who is this monster? I'm like, bro, it's the Rathalos.
Well, there's a lot more of you walking around the environment too, and characters just talking at you as you walk around the environment, like, oh my god, what are those footprints? Oh, that looks like a Rathalos. Oh my god, it's a Rathalos. Like, and then it flies away, and it's like, okay, now you can go hunt the Rathalos, and it's on top of a mountain on the other side of the fucking map. Like, thanks guys. Like, you couldn't have just like let it attack me and fight me right here instead of making me run across the entire zone. Because there's a lot of that shit.
And there's one particular moment in Monster Hunter World is where you had to find the Wyvern God guy.
Oh yeah, and they don't tell you.
Person I know got stuck on this part for hours because it's not.
It doesn't tell you anything. Yeah.
Anything. And with Generations, there's nothing like that in the game. Like, everything is like mission based. There's some stuff that you get locked out of. You had to do an urgent quest for, but like, it's just to unlock the next tier of monsters to fight.
Yeah.
And
which this game has urgents too.
Yeah, this game has urgents too, but like, it's not very. Like, I say it like this, right? So in World, if I'm already high ranked, which is a different tier of monsters, or the same tier of monsters but a lot harder and everything like that, and Justin here just bought the game, he can't play with me because in multiplayer because he didn't go through the story mode. Whereas in Generations, I'm like already G ranked, and Justin can jump right in with me and start playing.
Dude, so this is what I was thinking about when I was saying that the way they design multiplayer is annoying. Is that I wanted to play World with the people at like our job. So we have a bunch of people at our job that bought World a few months ago
because we hyped it up.
Because we were hyping it up when we were playing Generations, actually. And we were talking about World was fun and worth playing, and a bunch of people got it at our on our team. And they started playing it, and we tried to play with them, and it's just such a fucking nightmare to set up. Like, I had to like downgrade my gear, and like they couldn't play any missions with me, obviously, because of what you're talking about, where it restricts you. If you haven't gotten through the story segment, you need to unlock the monster that we're fighting. They can't fight it. So there was it's a lot of hoops you have to jump through in order to play multiplayer. Whereas with Generations, like, it's cumbersome because there's a lot you have to do, but it's easy to Sherpa somebody through it. Like World, it was annoying to Sherpa those guys through the game because we had to wait for their stupid cutscenes to play out to the point where we could join the fucking hunt, which would take 10 or 15 minutes. And then by the time we get in there, like, they've already fought the monster for 5 fucking minutes, and like we would just annihilate it in 10 seconds. It's like, then it was over. And then there were times though where we failed because other guys we play with are new to the series, and had
to capture the monsters.
Yeah, they were having trouble, fighting monsters for the harder monsters for the first time. And when that happens, it's just like, it was like eye rolling though. It wasn't like I wasn't like mad at them. It was just the fact that like, fuck, now we gotta wait for them to go through the fucking cutscene again. Yeah, and like 20 minutes just to get in this fucking hunt. Whereas with Generations, it's literally you pop in, even if it's a story mission, you pop in, you find the fucking monster, and you kill it. That's it. There's no fucking cutscenes. There's no talking. Like, I understand that they want to give the game more depth with the story, but the story in this game is pathetic. The narrative is irrelevant. I don't care who the fucking first fleet is. I don't care who the second fleet is. I don't care that I'm the fifth fleet. I don't give a shit. I just want to go kill fucking monsters. That's all Monster Hunter's ever been. And if they can make a good story within that framework, please go for it. But they never can. So don't force that, you know?
Yeah.
You're taking away from the gameplay when you're making me wait so long to just play with my friends. You know, and the restriction on the story part is really annoying. The fact that you can't join the hunt till cutscenes are over. That's such a weird restriction. I don't understand why that's the way it is. Like, why can't I just join their hunt and then it just plays the cutscene for me too?
Yeah.
You know, like, even if I've already experienced it, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It was a weird design choice. I understood, and I understood why they did what they did. They were trying to, ease new players until because they figured they were going to get a lot of new players, which they did.
Yeah.
But with Generations, it was like a call out to us veterans, because they're like, hey man, they had a couple new monsters, but it was just like, hey man, go in here and do what you need to do, and the multiplayer's already unlocked for you. Boom, there you go.
I know. There's no restriction on the multiplayer. Like, you can jump right into it like almost the second you boot the game up.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
And then that mission those missions were even separate. Like, you had certain village stuff you had to do, but I mean, Monster Hunter Generation falls into the same, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate falls in the same tier to me as Smash Bros. Ultimate does. It's a send off to the series.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. It has like everything that's ever been in there.
Everything that's been in there before, and I thought it was a really cool game.
It's so robust, man.
Yeah.
If you've not played Monster Hunter, like, I almost feel like Generations Ultimate's a bad place to start. Like, it's so overwhelming.
Oh, it
for
is.
A new
It's
player.
Definitely overwhelming.
But once you get into it and you start to get it, it clicks in such a wonderful way. Like, it really does. I think, I know we're shitting on World a lot. I do want to shout out one thing with the game, though, that I really think is awesome, that they did a really good job with, are the environments.
Oh,
Dude, the maps in World are fucking phenomenal. Like, the way you can interact with the environment in the game is really cool. I like the way that monsters interact with the environment.
Oh, and how they interact with each other, because that's another thing in Generation they don't do, unfortunately.
The fact that the environment is one big area too, that you're not going through loading screens between little zones like you do in Generations. I fucking hate that shit. That's like the one thing with Generations that's annoying, is that there's like 12 zones on every map and you have to load into each zone every time you walk between them. That's an annoying element to the game. So I think they knocked it out of the park with that with World.
Yeah,
the thing they need to catch up on is the depth of the combat and the monster variety.
Yeah, they definitely built the ecosystem within each map on World.
And that feels real. I think the things they need to improve are the tracking. Yeah. Monster tracking is so stupidly easy. It's not even a challenge. Like, the game tells you where to go.
Now, granted, guys, we're talking this from like a veteran point of view. Like, if you're new to the series, you're not even going to like think about this shit that we're thinking about, like tracking and shit like that.
It's such like minute nonsense. But in the older games, so in Generations, you have to paintball. You have to find the monster. This isn't necessarily fun, but you have to run around the areas, and you'll eventually learn where they spawn and kind of figure out where to go to see. But when you're first starting out with a monster you never fought before, you have to run around and find it, and then once you find it, you have to hit it with a paintball to track it. In World, there's none of that. You will find footprints on the ground, and you'll just hit X or whatever button it is to pick up the footprint, and then it will show you more footprints, and then your little scout flies will fly out, and then eventually you'll get enough of them where the scout flies will fly out and show you a path to the monster. And after a certain point, like early in the game, it was cool when you didn't have a lot of info, but later on, when you fought a monster enough times, it just tells you where they are out of the gate.
Yeah, you just automatically know, because I guess from their point of view, you're a veteran hunter of this particular monster at this point.
But it's so automatic that it's taken away from the gameplay, right?
Gotcha.
You're not actually tracking. You don't feel like a hunter anymore. It just feels like a game where they might as well just spawn you in an arena with the monster and let you kill it.
Oh, which you can do.
Which you can do. There are missions like that, but that's the thing, is like the tracking element of it is part of the Monster Hunter experience. Learning where the monster spawns, learning what areas it likes to be in, depending on what map you're on and which monster it is. That's part of the experience. So I think those are things they need to improve on. I hope they don't continue to make things easier. I hope they kind of bring back some of these older things that I know some people are going to be like, oh, but that's like a pain in the ass. That's the thing, is there's a certain experience that Monster Hunter gives you that it's immersive in the sense that you feel like you're actually hunting at certain points. The game's stilted. Like, Generations has stilted movement and animations sometimes, but overall your character is not a fluid thing that you can't just like jump off a wall and fucking jump into the air and do this crazy jump kick and shit.
You're definitely
like,
not
you're really
Kratos from God of War or something like that.
You're really heavy, and like you don't feel like Superman. That's the point, right?
Yeah,
You feel
exactly.
like a regular person, like what a normal person would feel like if they were out there hunting these monsters.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of my point. And I think World took some of that away because there's a lot of acrobatic, crazy ass shit you can do in World.
Yeah, you're right.
That the movement is like, it's fun, but at the same time, it's a little bit over the top for me. So I want them to kind of like reel that back a little bit and bring back some of the more, the like, I don't want to say like,
because, I mean, somebody can counter your argument with that. And like, oh, well, they have aerial style in, Generations where you can jump on the monster.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
That's not the same thing. It's not as, the movement's not fluid, though.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, yes, you can jump in the air, but you're not, like, you can't jump in the air and then dodge sideways and fucking hit a wall and jump off the wall and do this crazy-ass fucking spin kick thing. Like,
yeah.
Like you can in World. I know that appeals to people in certain ways, but it's turning it into, like... You're turning it into a faster action game that is not what Monster Hunter's ever been. It's always been a slower game.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with World is the speed is too fast. That's my point. It's turning it into a game that it's not, where you're
I feel like the speed is slower compared to Generations, in my opinion. That's just my
I don't
opinion.
think so. I was hyper aggressive in World, dude. Like I'm like, if we ever play that together, like in the high rank stuff or whenever G rank comes out, like you'll see how I play it, where you get to a point where, dude, I'm on top of the monster fucking constantly. Like, there's no point where I'm, like, ever waiting or sitting around. Like, I'm constantly jumping at the monster, fucking attack. Because that's what the game's so forgiving, too, with the amount of damage the monsters do in high rank, that it was like, I never really felt threatened in most of the combats, honestly. And when you fight the monsters enough, you know how to position yourself so you can be hyper aggressive, but... Your movement's not good enough in Generations really to ever feel that way necessarily, depending on what you're fighting. So,
you know what, you're right, because I had to use the Brave style to get my style.
Yeah,
from like Worlds.
Yes.
Worlds, I was used to going toe to toe with the monsters, and
which you're not doing in Generations.
Yeah.
You're a lot more. You have to be a lot more thoughtful in your positioning and where you're standing, and there's a lot more elevation. Like, you pay much more attention to elevation, I feel like, in Generations than you do in World too. So yeah, I think there's some things I want to. I just, unfortunately, I think the ship has sailed, though. I think all the things I'm talking about, they're not going to do.
Yeah,
I think we've.
I think they will put some of that stuff in once they figure it out. I think they just got to figure it out first.
That's true. This is the first game. I mean, I think once this G rank thing comes out, and then whatever the next version of Monster Hunter is after this, I'll be really interested to see how different it is from World.
Yeah, because that arch temper shit is trash. Like, I don't like that.
It really is not good.
Yeah,
it's not good. But you got any other thoughts on
no,
Monster
that's
Hunter?
it.
All right, so that's it. Those are our Game of the Years: Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate for Montrell and God of War for me. If you guys want to interact with us on Twitter, Montrell is iTrap for the Hokage.
And that's the number 4.
The number 4. I am at Thundernut01, and then our combined Twitter for the podcast is at The Player's Take. If you want to ask us any questions, you can email us at theplayerstake01@gmail.com. And if you ask a question, we will answer it 100%.
It's linked to both of our phones.
We have zero emails from people. So if you ask a question, even if you're an asshole, I'll probably read it on here. We'll guarantee you that. So if you did listen this far, though, we really appreciate it. And next week, I don't know what we're going to be talking about in the next episode, but we'll figure it out, I suppose, and whatever news comes out.
Oh, yeah. Well, not next episode. Yeah, that's supposed to be the episode before.
We'll be talking about Kingdom Hearts coming up. But I don't think that's going to be next episode.
Yeah, I think next episode we're probably going to focus on... I didn't want to touch on that gameplay thing, how opening up, how you said 5 hours. You remember we had this conversation earlier. Got it.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we'll talk about that. So, so I think it's been a pretty meaty episode, but hopefully a good one. And we will see you guys next time. All right? Bye, guys.
Bye.